stuff. Notice that's here. So I
Sitting
gotta
at 9 o'clock, folks. Call the March 31st, 2015 Board of Commissioners meeting to agenda. We'll start out with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next part is our agenda review.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we do have 3 adjustments to the agenda this morning. The first item is a change to our Human Resources Department agenda. Item number C in the packet that was published has been moved up to an action item, so we just want to clarify that. The second item is an amendment to County Ditch number 34. We have some additional information to share with the board as part of the engineer's report. And then the third item is a modification to the findings and order on page 23 of the Part B packet for County Ditch 12. We just adjusted the names of the viewers in that resolution. So with that, I would ask approval of the agenda.
I'll move the agenda with the amendments. Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed. All right, we have commissioners' reports on committees. I'm going to ask that people try to keep them a little bit briefer this morning. It seems like we have a long meeting going on today.
Okay.
So let's start with Kip.
I certainly can start. After our last board meeting, I managed to get down just the very tail end of the Community Connect. And I was going to tell all of us to stop down there after the board meeting, but it kind of spaced it off. And so, but I did get down there, got to visit some new people. It looked like a really good turnout, and a couple people I talked to said they had a lot of people at about 1 o'clock. So at our extension meeting, everything's going really well there. We got our new administrative assistant on board. She's doing a great job, apparently. Vance and I met with Pat. We just kind of talked about some of his plans up at the attorney's office. It was a great meeting, about an hour. Just kind of visiting with us what's going on up there. Surrounded by History event for the Historical Society. It was well attended, had a great time. Good food and nice program. And then I met with Will, and I went out to the Phelps Farm and looked at some issues with some eroding banks on the ditch and having to deal with some more right-of-way in order to get a new buffer strip put in. So this is something we're going to start dealing with. Citizens Academy we're all at, and Jesse, thank you for putting that on. It's a wonderful program. It looks like you got a good group of people, and it should be a lot of fun this year. Heard Bob on KQE last Wednesday, did a great job, had a good report, and talked a lot about the different things going on in the county with Pete Steiner. Had Emergency Communication Board and my EMS board last Thursday, and the Township Officers Board meetings all on the same day. ECB and EMS are both moving around very well. And then yesterday I had lunch with Bob and Mark and just kind of talked about the agenda and the ditches today. So that brings me today, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Just a little bit. March 20th, surrounded by history and good showing by the commissioners. It was a good program. March 24th, Parks and Affordable Housing, we have a new director. Deborah Newman, who was with Taylor Corp for a while and big background in human resources, and she's got a lot of connection to the community, did a lot of work with United Way, and so we're really happy and excited. The new director, and our retiring director, we're wishing her well because she did an excellent job, brought partners up to what it is today. And of course we had the Citizens Academy then that evening. It's always fun and good to relate with all the folks there for the program. And then of course Township's on the 26th. And then I just want to make a note here, is with Beyond the Yellow Ribbon, we finally have some signs, and they've been posted by our highway department in conjunction with the state, but because they're on state highway roads. We have 2 signs in north and south on 22 at the county line and where our signs are, and then 14 both east and west of the county line. And then will notice on Highway 60 east, we will have, actually it's east, but
That's gotta be west.
it should be west, yeah, there's a side there. We need more signs, but that's all there was. Maybe we'll get more, I don't know, but they're all up. So thanks to our county guys, so.
Thank you. Will?
Yes, on the 23rd, I went to Slayton and we had a rural Minnesota Energy Board meeting there. And we talked about some of our lobbying efforts on the levy limits and production tax during that meeting. We had folks from the rural electric associations and then the wind energy folks talked to us about some proposed legislation, and one side was for, one side was against, so that was an interesting meeting. And on the 24th, we had the, as Kip said, he and I visited Phelps Farm, looking at buffer strips. Later on that day, I attended the landowners meeting for County Ditch 78, which will on the agenda for later today. And of course, Citizens Academy that night. On the 25th, Vance and I attended a meeting with the county attorney and the sheriff and the public safety director, and talked about the new laws that are coming out on child abuse investigations, how it will impact the county. On the 26th, they attended the transit meeting at Lyon, talking about the possibility of mass transit for Nicollet, Missouri, and North County. Then township officers that night, and last night, Vance and I were at the corn and soybean growers annual meeting in Lake Crystal. We had a good turnout. We talked a lot about pertinent topics. Well, I'll leave it at that.
An amazing speaker, didn't he?
Yeah, it was incredible.
Did they talk about water quality or anything at all? Or?
Yeah, Greg Michelson gave a short presentation, passed out information on water quality, and farmers are very aware of water quality and are working just as hard as anybody else to make sure it's better. So, and had a presentation from a blogger from, where was he from, Montana? And gave a very interesting talk about comparing the logging industry to the farming industry. And it was pretty nice.
It's farming.
Yeah, yeah.
It really is.
Very
It's
interesting.
family farming.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a family farm.
Came from a logging family, and very interesting. So,
The seasons are just different.
Yeah.
It might take about 15 years to actually plant them before they cut them.
Go ahead, Drew.
On the 17th, was our last board meeting, March. Then on Wednesday, the 18th, I attended the South Central TZD meeting over at MnDOT. The main thing I want to say about that is Towards Zero Death effort in Minnesota. This May 29th is our South Central conference or convention that we have down in, it's a workshop down in Fairmont, Minnesota. And so on the 29th, it's at the Holiday Inn, and it's free. And so anybody that's interested in those types of issues are welcome to come. They're going to serve breakfast. Registration is at 8 o'clock until 9, and there's breakfast in between there. So anytime you arrive before 9 is fine. And once a year, our region puts on this workshop. It's very good. Then on Minnesota Parks and Trails Commission, we had a meeting on March 19th, and it's our district planning meeting in Springfield, Minnesota. And there we talked again about reviewing where things were at in our state and how to move forward so that by the year 2016, there'll be a new process for getting funding from the legacy dollars to help with parks and trails in rural Minnesota, and our district number 5. And so this year is an important year because by June 30th, the end of June, it will be the deadline for getting your trail plan or your parks plan in and becoming like a rating system, whether it be considered regionally significant or not. And so this guide, it's online too, has a lot of really good information. The Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Strategic Plan,
And it talks about how you can become rated significant, or at least how to look at some of the criteria to see if your park or trail might be significant to the region. And so, if anybody has any questions, they can contact me or go online and you'll see it on the DNR website. And then on Friday the 20th, of course, we all went to the Historical Society annual dinner and fundraiser. That was great. Tuesday, I had a luncheon with our new county attorney down at the Bicker Inn. That was with Pat McDermott. And we refrained from bickering. We actually talked progressively and productively.
There's a penalty for that, Joe.
Well, I heard the Bicker Inn is sort of named after the idea of people getting together and bickering. And so that's why it got its name, apparently. And so we were there just to enjoy a lunch, and it was very good. And then on later that day, let's see here. Oh, I lost kind of it. The 24th, we had the Spring Citizens Academy, I guess, that evening. Wonderful, good group of people it turned out. I think they wish they would have more time to drill the commissioners on issues, so I think we ran out of time or something. I don't know. And then the Community Ed and Rec Advisory Council I attended on the 25th. Audrey Neeson Boyer is our director there over at the Lincoln Center. And we're trying to fill out the board because we've had open positions. Also, I want to mention something. You've probably heard of this, the Spirit of Youth Awards, which is going to be May 20th right there at the Lincoln Center. And if you know of anybody who really goes the extra mile to help youth in our community, or youth who have been involved in a lot of things in our community, in our region, in our school district. April 29th is the deadline for nominations, and if you can't get them to me, or you go to the Lincoln Community Center and get a hold of Melanie Schmidt, or just call in over there at Lincoln, and they'll guide you to an online form you can fill out, or they'll mail you one, to a hard copy. Those are wonderful little awards in our community. And then on Thursday the 26th, I attended the Region 9 grants workshop. And I'm trying to think of the name of the building, North Mankato, that's South Central something up there. It's
They're
on 13.
by ups.
Yeah.
Consortium.
It's a very nice building.
It's a consortium buying materials and stuff for school district.
Okay. So we had a very good workshop there. A lot of people from the community showed up. And they put these workshops on annually. And this is my third one, I believe, in the last 3 years that I've attended. And it's really wonderful to hear what's available, these foundations that make grant money available to our community for projects that really couldn't happen without that little, not little, the large extra boost. And then, of course, Mark and I had a meeting with Al and Jack and some folks. Remember that, Mark? Public Works, just talking about land acquisitions and the process and how that all works. And it was interesting, very interesting. So that's my report. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go through the stuff that everybody else hasn't gone through. On March 19th, I had my Transportation Alliance Board meeting, and I left there and went to my Highway 169 corridor executive meeting up in Shakopee. Talked about the Historical Society dinner. On March 23rd, I had the Habitat Board meeting, and then the Diversity Board meeting in the afternoon. March 24th, I had Airport Commission, and of course that evening we had Citizens Academy. Thank you again, Jesse. We talked about the meeting with the county attorney on the new child abuse law. And thank you, Pat, for putting that on. It's good to have that knowledge. And that afternoon or evening, I testified at the House Transportation Committee up in St. Paul. March 26th, we had our Township Officers meeting, and last night, Will and I had the corn and soybean growers meeting, which was really an amazing meeting. Have some amazing farmers in this area. And that's what the end of my report. Let's see, it's a quarter after. Let's go to our historic courthouse boiler replacement bid award.
Welcome, Tim.
Morning, Tim. update you a little bit on the boiler project that we've been looking at doing. We received bids on March 26th. We had 2 contractors bid it, one Poppy Companies out of Mankato here and Scoopin Mechanical out of Mankato as well. As you know, we're looking at replacing the old boilers downstairs, and they were trying to figure out the best case scenario to try and get them old boilers out and get the new ones in.
Cut 'em up.
The doors aren't real wide down there to get everything
I don't
in.
think there's a choice but to cut them up, is there?
Yep, but they were looking at cutting them up and still trying to figure out how they're getting them out of there, which was very interesting.
It's a really,
Yep, so, we came in with some decent bids. We had budgeted roughly, we're figuring around 250,000, and Poppy Companies came in at the 145.9. So, they're kind of hungry, I think, to get at it. The second bid came in at 173.8, so well below both of our projected bids that we thought we'd be at, so. And my recommendation would be to go ahead and move forward with the one for Poppies at the 145.9.
I'll make a motion to approve the Poppy bid for replacing the boilers.
second.
Got a motion and a second. The only thing is that Pap or Poppy?
That was Poppy. It is Poppy. I always thought it was Pap.
No, I do too.
Poppy Companies.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed. Gosh, you're fast.
I'm sure a lot of this is.
Nobody knows that good.
Let's hope the rest of the day goes that
Tim, a
well.
lot of this is labor, isn't it?
Yes.
It's gotta be.
Yep. Yeah. There's, it's gonna be a lot of labor just to get them old ones out of there, so.
What are we gonna do with all that extra room? That's what I'm wondering. Because you take that big old boiler out of there and put the newfangled ones in, man, I tell you,
There's gonna be some room in there.
there's gonna be some room because those big boilers take a lot of room.
Yes, they do.
I think I saw a request for a little office for you down there.
Well, it'd be warm. That's one thing.
It'd be good in the winter time.
That's what they put the commissioner in.
Only on a bad day.
You know, we are doing that space study, so yeah.
There you go, there you go. All right, thank you very much, Tim.
All right, thank you.
Oh, Tim,
Yes.
while you're up here, the chimes,
Yes.
are we looking at any time frame on that?
We're looking at mid-April for install. I'm working with the Burden Company, they're the ones that do the clocks. We're working on the dates to do the install. We haven't talked about the chimes or anything of when we'd be playing them or anything else yet. We'll get everything installed and then we can visit.
Would you please contact us before you put them in?
Yes,
Because
we'll give you
we're
the
getting some comments from the public on the chimes, and we would appreciate to be able to comment and see when and how long and what kind of music. I don't think hard rock would probably be a good thing.
No,
You guys wanted Wipeout.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
drum
there you
solo.
Me and Bob have talked already, and we'll get everything installed without any music playing or anything else like that, roughly mid-April, and then we'll visit again before we do anything with the chimes or the music to see what we want to do.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.
All right, looks like we have some time. You want to get into some administrative services, Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Our first item is the county board minutes for March 17th.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed. Bills?
I'll move the bills.
Second.
Got a motion and second on the bills. Any comments or questions?
First one on that list, I haven't heard of that before, the 3 Square Creative Services. I was just curious, it's only for $292.50.
That was an expenditure through our SHIP program, the statewide health improvement program. There was some communication efforts that they contracted with this organization to provide.
Okay. Just have a question, the Advanced Correctional Healthcare Incorporated for $16,000, how long a period is that for?
That's 1 month.
Any more questions? No more questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed.
That's all.
Human Resources.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, this is item number 3 in your packet, but it was revised, as I mentioned earlier, and so we do have one action item for the Human Resources agenda. That action item is authorization to initiate recruitment for a South Central Community-Based Initiative Program Coordinator. This is a position that the SCCBI Joint Powers Board has requested that Blue Earth County recruit for, be paid completely by the Adult Initiative Grant that the Joint Powers Board receives. We act as the fiscal agent. We did attempt to recruit for this position through a contracted agency, but did not receive adequate responses to that recruitment. We believe by making it a county position that we will have better results in terms of that recruitment. And so we're bringing it forward for the board's consideration this morning.
What are the wishes of the board?
I'll move approval. Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
So, Bob, if somebody becomes a county employee for this position, it wasn't prior, was it? It was
This would actually be kind of a revision of a position that used to be in place, but, so continue with your question.
Oh, I mean, did they used to get benefits through the county prior to this or not?
The position that existed before did. That position has been revamped some, continues to receive county benefits, but they feel, the Joint Powers Board feels that we need additional resource to ensure that the goals of that particular grant program can be accomplished. So they would like an additional staff person to carry out those coordination responsibilities.
Oh, okay, and then since it's coming out of the county as a regular position, is it a union position or not?
That's a good question. As a coordinator, it might be. It kind of depends on whether it has supervisory responsibilities. So I haven't explored that fully enough to answer that question.
So it'll be reposted and decided upon before it's posted?
Right. It has gone through Fox Lawson to get the band and grade assigned to it, but I haven't discussed with Phil in terms of what he expects in terms of that supervisory responsibility.
Any more comments?
And the grant covers the salary and the benefits.
That's right. It'll be fully reimbursed by the grant, so there will be no cost to our county taxpayers.
And what happens after the grant runs out?
Well, we would have to adjust the staffing, but this is about a $5.5 million grant currently that's been in place since 1997. So at this point, we don't anticipate that challenge being put in front of us, but as with any grant we receive, if those monies are either reduced or eliminated, we will have to make adjustments accordingly.
All right, thank you. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? It's passed. And we have some informational.
Right, there are additional items there. There was a resignation of a custody officer in the jail, so we have initiated recruitment to refill that position. We have filled one of our new positions in the Human Services Department in our financial assistance area. And then also have filled a clerical specialist position within the Human Services Department. And lastly, we have a clerical specialist position that has completed their probationary period and subject to a salary adjustment.
All right, thank you very much. The Traverse des Sioux Library Cooperative Contract for Services.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, this is a renewal of an agreement with the Traverse des Sioux Library Cooperative for library services. The amount of this particular agreement for 2015 is $51,789. We do choose package 3, which includes the delivery, interlibrary loan, and automation services. So all of the services that TDS provides to area library services for that $51,789. So recommend recommending approval of this renewal agreement.
Wishes of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
I just want to mention that this number has decreased significantly in the last few years, so we're pleased with how they're cutting their costs up there.
Thank you very much.
One question then. This doesn't include though the delivery we do to the rural residences. That's a separate issue.
That's a separate issue. That's out of our operating budget, so all the postage costs associated with that are covered by the budget for the library department.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed. Did we just have enough time to do our joint services agreement with the city of Mankato?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, this is a joint services agreement that was requested by the city of Mankato. They are in the process of updating their financial management system with the Tyler Munis product that Blue Earth County purchased back in, I believe it was 2008. And so they will be on a similar platform as Blue Earth County, which creates some opportunities. So they requested a joint services agreement that would allow them, first and foremost, to draw upon an offer that the vendor has to receive a significant discount on the purchase price of that software. I believe they're receiving about a 35% reduction in their purchase price. So it's a significant dollar amount of savings to them to have this in place. From the county's perspective, there is no cost to this agreement. What it basically says is that we will have the option to share training related to this particular software product if we have need for it. It also allows us to do a crosswalk between our systems if we should decide that that would have value to both organizations. There's none of those crosswalks that are planned today, but we certainly could see some potential into the future. So at this point, this is an agreement that provides some benefit to the city of Mankato and the taxpayers there, but also creates an opportunity going forward for us to work more closely with the city as it relates to financial management issues.
All right. What are the wishes of the board?
So moved.
A motion?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Okay. When I was reading through that, just that couple pages of things and software benefits and information sharing, my radar just kind of went up a little bit, because I'd like to know what information sharing that we would be doing with the city, that as far as the software benefits and information sharing goes. I mean, it just kind of concerns me as far as what access they're going to have then through the same system to information that the county has, and has there been dialogue about how we're going to protect our information from anybody in the city that might have access to it.
We have not had those detailed discussions at this point in time. I think where we see some potential is in the tax levy area and the market value, that perhaps between the assessor's office and the city office that deals with taxing, that we might be able to build some crosswalks, but as you suggest, security concerns will have to be addressed as a part of those discussions.
I know that it sounds like contractually, this is the gist I get from what I've heard, is that because if we set up a joint services agreement, which is different than a joint powers agreement, I guess, is that different?
It's basically saying that we're going to share resources.
Okay. That allows for a contractual, let's just call it benefit of some sort with the company that has these software services. Is that what's going on, kind of, or just it's because we're going to set up as a joint services, that gives the company, or they've got some language somewhere that says anybody that has a joint services agreement with somebody who's contracting with us, they get discounts to come on board? Is that kind of what's going on? I'm just trying to figure out what the benefit is,
Sure.
even for the county, or what we need to be careful of, because we're two separate government entities and provide different services.
My understanding is that the vendor has offered the city of Mankato this significant discount to the purchase price of the software product because Blue County already is a purchaser of that software product, and so they offer discounts to other jurisdictions that might join forces with the county at some point in the future.
Yeah. I'm willing to give it a shot, Bob. I just told him, and I let you know before my antenna went up, I was a bit worried that once we enter into the contract with the city of Mankato, you know, what are the risks also? I don't know what the risks might be informationally. I just want to make sure, I know it's a big story with the county as far as us protecting our information. And I just want to hope there's going to be easy access across the lines, you know.
No, Commissioner Campbell, I don't see that we would ever allow the city to have access to our system, but we might be able to build crosswalks that would allow us to send information to them that they could then use within their system because we're on the same platform. So that's one example where I could see some benefit of them having the same data system that we have. Human resources area where we say share similar staff, it will allow those staff to move between the systems easily because they'll be working with the same software day in and day out, regardless of which organization they're with. Our information will be separate from their information. That common platform will be beneficial. I would also draw your attention to item number 7 in the agreement where they had originally proposed a 180-day written notice to terminate this agreement. Based on some of your concerns, I had asked for that number of days to be reduced. So we do have a 60-day out if we find that this agreement is not working for the county, or a 60-day out to terminate that agreement.
Okay. I'd like to have some comments from somebody in the IT department, you know, just to help me, to help the board maybe understand, you know, from our perspective. It's fine that if this is going to allow the city, I think, to get a discount. It's a significant amount of money. It's over $100,000, which helps the taxpayers. But I just want to make sure what the risks are once we enter into an agreement with somebody. You know, what are the risks involved with that? I'm not sure what they are. I'm just a little bit skeptical.
Right, until we get into those detailed discussions, which we've not had to this point, it's hard to identify what those risks would be, but we would certainly address those as part of those detailed discussions.
And so I'd like to ask for some kind of a report or something to the board or to myself, or if that's all right, Mr. Chair, if I have to request that.
I'm not sure what you're asking, but I guess, you know, you can ask whatever you want.
Well, what might be some of the risk factors, if any, as far as IT?
I think if you look under number 5, it says all integration crosswalks must be agreed upon by both the city and county prior to the implementing. It really covers, and I have the trust in both our administration and our IT department that they will make sure that they protect the county. When I look at this, anytime that you can go into a joint services agreement, it's going to save the taxpayers money. It's going to, you know, both county-wise and city-wise, because the city of Mankato is about 2/3 of Blue Earth County, and all the taxpayers inside the city of Mankato are going to benefit from this agreement. That's including me and you.
Well, that's one way of looking at it.
And I think I have enough trust in our administration, our IT department. They're not going to let off information that should not be let off. And I guess I'm not really afraid of the city of Mankato taking information like that anyway. But that's, you know, I also understand where you're coming from, but that's my feeling.
I think I'd email when the conversation starts, you know, to some of the board, don't tell them this is what we're talking about. I think it would be reasonable when those conversations start, just to start out. So.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
know, there,
60-day window that's there, right?
If we want to cancel.
Yeah.
and, you know, it's gonna be a while before they have this system up and running. I think their lead time is probably close to a year before they will be actively using that system. they're going to go through a conversion, and so they're going to be busy just getting their system up and running. So I don't see this leading to a lot more discussions for quite some time, but at that time that some of those crosswalks become part of the discussion, I'll certainly keep the board apprised of those and make sure that the board is comfortable with anything.
Anything else?
Sounds like concerns out there.
And that's
Part of
good.
the, why we're here for gatekeepers.
That's what we're here for.
For gatekeepers.
It's on the record, Julie.
All right.
Thank you. All right. If there are no more comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? All right, it's passed. All right, we're going to jump into the County Ditch 34 final hearing. Hi, Greg.
Good morning, Craig.
Morning, board.
Start with finally the speech here, Greg.
Yes.
Welcome to the final hearing of the proposed improvement to County Ditch 34. The purpose of this hearing is to consider the petition for the drainage project, with all matters prevailing to the detailed survey report and the viewers' reports. Mr. Craig Austenson, ditch manager, will present the jurisdictional documents. Craig?
Okay. The purpose of the final hearing is to determine whether or not to establish the project. If the board finds the following: the detailed survey report of the viewer's report has been made and other proceedings have completed under Minnesota Statute 103E. The reports have been made or amended under complete and correct. The damages and benefits have been properly determined. For the estimated benefits are greater than the total estimates that cost includes damages. 5, the proposed drainage project will be a public utility and benefit and will promote the public health. And 6, the proposed drainage project is practicable. Under statute, if those 6 things are found during this hearing, the board the statute says they shall establish the ditch, the project. Other documentation here, the proof of mailing was mailed on February 27th, 2015. Affidavit of publication was published. Notice was published in the Free Press on March 5th, March 12th, and March 19th. Notice was also posted at the courthouse on March 4th. I guess the next thing we go on to would be the DNR report. I don't know, is there a DNR representative here?
DNR rep is not here?
No, doesn't seem to be.
Okay.
So if there's not a DNR representative present, statute requires that I read the report into the record.
Thank you.
So that'll be. So from the Department of Natural Resources, Division of Ecological Water Resources Department, and it was addressed the March 9th, addressed to myself, Craig Austenson, ditch manager. Dear Mr. Austenson, on behalf of the Director of the Division of Ecological and Water Resources of the Department of Natural Resources, I offer the following comments on the final engineer's report for the project referenced above. In accordance with the Minnesota Statute Section 103E.301, of general concern in all proposed ditch improvements is the cumulative effect that the project may have on downstream water resources, natural resources, and property owners in terms of quantity and quality of water that is received. Project-specific and cumulative impacts of the ditch projects can result in the downstream flooding, erosion, and a decrease in water quality. For these reasons, we urge careful evaluation of the project to ensure that it is consistent with the priority concerns identified in the Blue Earth County Water Management Plan. The water plan includes priorities for improving surface and groundwater quality, agricultural runoff, and impaired waters. The water plan prioritizes addressing agricultural non-point source pollution, including the reduction of erosion and runoff. During peak flows, example, spring runoff from agricultural lands can be reduced through the use of cover crops. cover crops also help retain topsoil on the land, improve the soil structure, aid in the infiltration and storage of soil moisture, and improve water quality. The retention and health of the topsoil is vital to long-term agricultural production. The use of cover crops in the watershed would reduce the need to expand ditch systems, stabilize ditch and stream banks, and decrease the frequency of ditch cleanouts, resulting in lower landowner costs for ditch maintenance. Minneopa Creek, just downstream of the outlet, is on the Pollution Control Agency's impaired waters list for turbidity. One of the objectives of the water plan is to address pollutants causing impaired waters by reducing non-point sources. Based on aerial photographs, a significant number of wetland signatures exist in where the new laterals are proposed. The DNR is concerned about increased sediment loads from new and improved private tiles that will connect to the public ditch system and further increase the outflow beyond what is modeled for the final engineer's report. The proposed project would increase the runoff and erosion from the ditch system and increase turbidity in the already impaired Minneopa Creek. Additional water retention and erosion control throughout the watershed needs to be implemented to ensure the project does not contribute to the Minneopa Creek impairments. Water retention through restored, created wetlands or stored basins needs to be coordinated with the landowners in order to reduce the amount of water entering Minneopa Creek. Please note that even though this is not feasible to restore enough wetlands to eliminate the need for a ditch system, it is beneficial to include water retention into the project. Wetland restoration creation would provide storage in the watershed, improve water quality, and provide wildlife habitat. The DNR supports the best management practices listed on page 6 through 7 of the final engineer's report, and we encourage project engineer to include best management practices section in all reports. A concerted effort should be made to implement best management practices as a mechanism to minimize the increased runoff and erosion that will result from this project. Please contact Kevin Mixon, Regional Environmental Assessment Ecologist, at 507-359-6073, or contact him by email if any general questions about this letter. And it's signed by Jim Seal, S-E-H-L, Area Regional Manager.
All right, thank you. We will now hear from the petitioner's attorney.
Thank you. Mr. Brandel, I will refer to Mr. Brandel, who prepared a final engineer's report, and any questions that I can answer afterwards or that will be addressed to me, I can answer, but I'll refer to Mr. Brandel.
Thank you, sir. Chuck? Morning, Chuck.
Morning.
Hi, Chuck.
Morning.
Blue Earth County Ditch 34 is an approximately 2,700-acre watershed, and it was constructed in the early 1900s as an all-tile system with a short stretch of open ditch. In the early 80s, a metal pipe was added to the outlet. A 36-inch pipe was added to the main for a portion of the outlet. Approximately 2010 or 2011, landowners were complaining about drainage issues, and the tiles were televised at that time. It was found that the metal pipe had many areas that were corroded. There were some blockages in the pipe, and it was in need of repair. So we put together multiple options, including repair versus improvement of the main, the entire system, and a petition was put forth to improve most of the system of County Ditch 34. The proposal is to replace both the over 100-year-old pipe and the pipe that was put in the 80s with a 42-inch pipe at the outlet. That would continue on. There is a private 24-inch main that was put in the mid-90s, according to landowners. That private tile would become part of the public system under this proposal, which would reduce one of the branches that would need to be updated. That's branch 4. The 42-inch pipe would continue on and serve branch 4, branch 2, and then where branch 2 splits off, it would split into the main would be a 24-inch tile. Branch 1 is being proposed to be improved to an 18-inch tile. Branch 2 is a 24-inch tile. The main continues on. There's a lot of tile in the system that's being improved. I'll just give the general overview. And the main continues on until it ends as a 12-inch tile. The proposed system also has an open ditch at its outlet. We are proposing to extend that open ditch and deepen it by approximately 3 feet. In doing so, we'd put a rate control weir, which is a 7-foot tall concrete structure, similar to if you've seen the pictures for CD57. But instead, CD57 has a 12-inch opening. This weir would have a 30-inch opening. And what that weir does, and the extra storage in deepening the end of the system, is provides storage to account for the change in peak flow in the system. We look at both the tile flow and the overland flow. We run the events through the 100-year event, and by changing the system and adding storage at the outlet, we're matching or decreasing the peak flow for all of the events up to the 100-year event. There has been some concern at the outlet. I do have a detailed drawing of that. It raises the 100-year flood elevation by approximately 4 inches, but we are recommending, I believe, a little over 3 acres of permanent damage for the grading and the flooding for that storage area. And I believe there is some concern about CRP in that area. When the project is completed, we can survey the CRP, and if there's any additional damages due to the project, we can account for those also. The DNR did have a comment about the best management practices. In the report, there is a best management practices design, and I do have a board of that here. So I keep speaking in the mic, I'll hold it up. The practices are outlined in different colors. The watershed line is the red line. The blue line is our proposed low-flow storage area with on the outlet. The green areas are all areas that could be system tiled or controlled drainage, could be done in those areas. All of the blue areas are potential storage or wetland areas. As part of this project, we are only proposing to do the outlet storage area, but per new statute from last year and the DNR's recommendation, we're doing these best management practices to outline for landowners what other things can be done in the system. Most of these best management practices are done outside of the ditch system or on-field practices versus the ditch system.
That road down there, can you tell me what road that is, just so everybody's got a good perspective? Is that the water's going to go underneath that road?
This is Trunk Highway 60.
Mm-hmm. And so is there going to be a change at the bridge area? I was just curious.
We're proposing to match or reduce the peak flows at that area. We're also proposing to over-dig the ditch slightly there to provide some sediment storage for any change with the improvement. The culvert crossing on the county road just at the end of the system, that culvert will remain the same. So overland flow will be still restricted by that culvert. The entire project cost is just under $2.2 million. Approximately $166,000 of that is what we call road authority costs for crossings to county roads or township roads. So the landowner cost on the system is just over $2 million. If the entire system failed today and needed to be replaced, we do have proof that it is in need of repair. The cost to repair the entire system that's being improved is just over $1.7 million. So when you take the net cost of the project is just $325,000 if separable maintenance is used, which we are recommending because we have televised the pipe. There's been portions that have been replaced privately because they weren't working, and then we do have evidence that the main is in need of repair. So we believe separable maintenance can be used in this case. The viewers will talk about the amount of benefits. That's a quick summary. There have been a few discussions. We had a informational meeting approximately 2 weeks ago, and then the viewers had meetings last week. There are a few areas that will be discussed today that are included in the cost for a proposed amendment. Extending branch 5 into section 17 as a 12-inch pipe was asked to be added to the project. Adjusting the alignment of a portion of the main line to a property line to allow another property to gain access to that was asked. That really doesn't change the cost of the project. And then a small extension of branch 1 to get to kind of a property line there to allow everybody access to the public main was added. There's also been some discussion about adding 38 acres to the watershed. I believe those landowners are here, and they should comment on that. It doesn't change the cost of the project. It just slightly decreases the efficiency of branch 4. But it'd still be my opinion that the project would be viable with that additional acres that would come in. And the main is deep enough to get that area.
Right.
In summary, it's our opinion that the project will be a public benefit, contribute to the public welfare of the area, and therefore it should be considered for final approval. The storage area at the end of the system does allow that we have an adequate outlet, as we're not increasing peak flows downstream, and the water quality features are outlined so landowners at least have an idea of other things that they could do in the system. So it's a quick summary of a large project. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chuck.
All right. We'll now hear from the viewers.
Welcome, Ron.
Good morning. My name is Ron Rehnquist. I'm one of the viewers that was appointed to look at both the redetermination of benefits for County Ditch 34 as well as the determination of benefits from the proposed improvement. Working with me were Chuck Bowers, Tom Mahoney, and Milo Holland. They did a significant portion of the benefit classifications within the field work, and then I've worked with them both supervisually in the field as well as helping with the preparation of the reports and the hydrologic and economic analysis. The first thing that was done within this project from the viewing perspective was a redetermination of benefits. A redetermination of benefits is the revaluation of the benefits provided by the ditch system as originally constructed or subsequently improved. So what we did was we went out and looked at the conditions that we would assume would exist after the repair of the current system. As Chuck said, there was some blockage issues and there's some potential maintenance issues, so we look at his hydrologic information to determine what the conditions should be within the field, not necessarily what exactly is out there today as we were looking at it. To do that, we do a mass appraisal, and what I mean by the mass appraisal is we don't do a before and after evaluation of every specific farm. We do a before and after evaluation of the watershed as a whole, and we make sure that we account for all lands within this watershed. The watershed was determined by use of the DEMs and the new LIDAR contours, and that was the line that we drew as viewers that said physically these acres would drain into the ditch system Those acres outside of that line, although could be brought into the system, some of them, but we said physically they drain away from the system into one of the other outlets, either into the creek or in one of the other adjacent ditch systems, and do not currently surface drain into ditch number 34. To determine a benefit value, then, we do a classification of all lands within the watershed. That classification is to distinguish between the value added because the outlet is provided to those properties or available for those properties. As Chuck talked about in the improvement, extending some of the tile branches so that all property owners had an outlet. We look at lands by 40-acre tract or smaller, government lot or smaller tract, and even though an owner may have an outlet, there may not be an outlet directly to each 40-acre parcel. So we go out, we classify all of the lands. The land classifications generally are A lands, are lands that without artificial drainage would be standing water wetlands and have no agricultural value. B lands are lands that would be seasonally flooded, and in our opinion, the highest and best use without artificial drainage would be hay and pasture lands. C lands, which are lands that typically are farmable and probably were not considered benefits back in the early 1900s because nobody thought about pattern tiling and the need for improved surface drainage. But our definition of C lands is lands that benefit from either improved surface drainage and or subsurface drainage, but are typically farmable even without artificial drainage. And then the D acres, which are the acres that contribute to the need for the capacity of the system, but do not physically necessarily benefit from significant increased production because of the need for drainage. Those acres somewhat are considered not what the ditch does for those acres, but what those acres do to the ditch itself. We look at and classify all of those lands within one of those considerations, and that is the basis for our benefit value. In addition to that, there are those acres that we find that are not benefit. Groves, conservation practices, permanent wetlands, and those acres, because they cannot be drained or changed, we find that there is no benefit necessarily to all of the acres within the watershed. But we do consider it. The other one class that is in there is roads, road authority benefits, even though maybe easement and owned by a property, the benefits to the road go to that road authority. So there's a section that we deal with road benefits as well. So we do a market value comparison then of the benefit or the change in land value for all of those various classes of land. And when you look at that, you have to go back to what the market value is, not necessarily the income. We use the income approach to support our breakdown of sales, but we use the market approach to determine the actual benefit value. So if you look at a sale and say it sells for $9,000 an acre, the buyer of that may not have that every acre within that $9,000 sale is of equal value. You have some better soils, some worse soils, you have some soils that need more drainage than other acres, but the average value of that sale then would equate to that $9,000. We try to look at the market value and say, has there been any sales of purely Class A type of land that we would look at that was a wetland without drainage and has proper NRCS design guideline drainage today? And it's very difficult to find anything like that. You can find some acres of what we might look at as B land, as being what is the value of hay and pasture land, and compare that with well-drained, tillable acres of the same soil types. Most lands have some type of drainage in them that are selling today. So even the C lands and the D lands, it's very difficult to find a pure sale of only those classes. So in looking at how we break down the values, we do the best that we can in analyzing all of the land sales We go back and compare their values, estimate what their drainage capacities and impacts are, and then compare that with our analysis of this particular watershed. To break down and support those breakdowns of the overall values, we do an income approach to value. Typically, in good economic times for farming, in good commodity price times, it's very easy to show that there's a good return to an investor because of the income that's produced. We looked at this particular project, and as commodity prices are now coming down, we have to look at a longer term average value. Now, we're trying to determine a benefit value over time. So you cannot go in and use today's cash commodity prices and come up with an increase in value for anything when there is no income at $3.50 corn. So what we used in looking at the breakdown is we used a $4 corn price and an $11 for soybean prices. We looked at best management producing an average 190 bushel corn and 50 bushels for soybeans. That gives us an adjusted annual gross income of $655 per acre. Production costs have to come off of that to determine what the income or the value associated with that income might be. The expenses do not include land value, because whether it be cash rent or individual ownership, our job is to determine the change of value in that land. And the land is owned whether it's drained or non-drained. And we don't use full equipment depreciation because you own the tractor to plant, whether you're mudding it in and it's wet or whether it's well drained and dry. We looked at $448 per acre of direct corn production costs, $187 for the soybeans, or a weighted average of $317.76 per acre for the direct expenses. As you look at these systems with NRCS designs, you go through the analysis of the 100-year storm frequency, and even though the A acres may have the capacity to drain 1 inch of runoff in 24 hours, you still get storms larger than that will impact that production. We've analyzed that and said the optimum production on the A acres is about 92% of that average annual production, because during those large storms you are going to have losses. The B acres would be 96%. The C and D acres, because they don't typically have surface water issues, will produce 100% of that optimum production. To determine a benefit value breakdown by class, you take the potential, adjust it for the percent of production, subtract the production cost, then because everything other than the A acres had a previous income, even hay and pasture, had an income prior to the drainage. You could still use it for hay or cut pasture it, and the C and D lands were still farmable even without artificial drainage. So we would subtract then the net previous income, and we've used $100 per acre for the hay and pasture. We used an 80% production on sea ground without artificial drainage, with a net income of $206, and our D acres would be $304 prior to artificial drainage. To reach those optimum productions, we did look at the need for pattern tiling, and that's a private cost. We've depreciated that cost over the same 25-year estimated life of the project, and have taken between $34 to $36 annually off of that as an additional expense. So then when you analyze that, it says that, like for the B acres, the net increase between hay and pasture and good tillable ground would be $177 annually. Because of the commodity prices being so low versus the sale prices, currently we've only used a 1.5% return on that investment. If the lower the price compared with the sale value, the lower the cap rate or the return to the investor. Using these numbers, we've estimated a 1.5% return on investment, or we've said the potential benefit to the B acre, current value of that future cash flow is $3,600 $68.30, rounded to $3,670. We're not saying that's what the benefit to the acres within the current system are, but we're looking at trying to compare apples and apples and say, these are the sales that have met those criteria, and you adjust accordingly. So that is our potential benefit value. To determine the benefit of the system as it currently exists, we go back in and we adjust for its restrictive hydraulic capacity. If you think about this system being built in the early 1900s, nobody anticipated 190 bushel corn and productions that are out there today. Most of those A acres were probably considered to be hay and pasture as highest and best use. So if we could put the cows out in the summertime, we could still use that land, get rid of the mosquitoes. The current system, we estimated, provides about 40% of that potential benefit to those A acres is all. The B acres, because they're a little higher, get about 55% of the potential benefit that they have. C acres about 75% because of the restrictive capacity of the outlet, and the D acres about 90% of their potential benefit. To get individual benefits, then, you would adjust the potential by the hydrologic adjustment, and that would give us our gross benefit to each of the properties that are out there. Like I said, because the ditch doesn't provide an outlet directly to each 40 within the system, we also make a proximity adjustment. The proximity adjustment is to leave enough money available to that owner that doesn't have a direct outlet, so that when he pays to go across the neighbors, ultimately for the same amount of cost, he can have the same outlet, whether that be through private or petition for a lateral. That's why there's a proximity adjustment, to leave just enough money out there so that they can afford to get their water to the system. As submitted, we have estimated then that the net benefits to this ditch system are $2,284,877 for the land benefits to the agricultural lands, and $82,897 to the roads, for a total benefits of $2,367,775. The improvement report then starts from what do you have now to what will you have after the completion of that improvement. Because this current ditch system is only providing 40%, 55% of that potential benefit, upgrading the system will provide an improved outlet and additional benefit. When you go up to near that half-inch drainage system capacity, you don't get up to the 100%, but on those A acres, it's estimated that the system will provide about 85% of that optimum A acre production. Or it will have an increase to a benefit to those A acres of 45% to bring that total to the 85. The B acres will come up to about 90% of that 1-inch runoff design. The C acres up to about 95, and the D acres up, we left at the 95 because of the system still not meeting the full 1-inch design capacity. You take the same acres as considered in the redetermination, you add the additional value of that outlet, and you end up coming up with a new benefit, or the added benefit of this improvement is $1,122,794.73. As a part of this, we also did damages. We acquired the right-of-way necessary for the extension of the ditch downstream. That right-of-way is currently a creek, which is within a grassland area. It will include the buffer strip plus buying the actual creek itself, because that will be restricted from any private changes because it will be part of the county ditch when that's done. And we have included temporary damages for all of the construction right-of-way for the installation of all of the tile lines. So we have damages for the impacts of the construction calculated within our estimate of benefits and damage as well. And we also gave damages to the road authorities. Because the road authority is responsible to replace the existing crossing, it is expected that the board will order the road authority to install the new crossings. The change in cost between replacing what is currently there and the increased size and capacity that is recommended should be and is a estimated cost to the system. Because the road authority was ultimately responsible for the replacement of those crossings, they can ask it to be included with this project, but ultimately it is the road authority's responsibility. We've allowed damages for any increase in cost caused by the increase in size due to the improvement of this system. So that will be a payment made to the road authority, and then the cost of those crossings themselves will be billed or borne by the road authority itself. After meeting with the landowners, and Chuck mentioned a little bit about the potential changes, the only recommended changes that are for certain to be considered as far as meeting with the landowners is on like the Robert Heinz property in section 17, and Chuck mentioned extending that 12-inch tile to give him an outlet. The physical surface water watershed is different than the area that he is requesting to include within the system, so we have recommended increasing his benefited acres by, if I'm not right, it's 48 acres. And so we have included that in the amendment and will be recommended as part of the final report to be attached to the order if the board goes forward. Ultimately, that worked out. I think that the increased cost of doing that was estimated at about $29,000. The added benefits are proportional to everything else, and part of about $30,000 or $35,000 worth of additional cost will shift to that branch because of the inclusion of these additional acres. So it's as close as we could work out the numbers within any additional cost not going to anyone other than the people on that branch. The final costs won't be known until the project's completed, and the costs are then distributed amongst those benefiting properties. There is one parcel that needs to be removed from the watershed as it was tiled out of the system and into, I think, ditch 39, if I remember correctly. And that was done last fall after we'd done our field work, and we weren't aware of it until the landowner meetings. And that would be the southeast of the southwest of section 20. We originally had about 7 acres within this watershed, and it was a plateaued area, and due to the poor capacity of the existing outlet, that was tiled into ditch 39 and should be removed from this ditch because of that. So because of the potential changes, I do not have a final benefit number. It is slightly greater than the benefits that I gave, the numbers I gave you, but because of the potential changes, I can't tell you the exact number. I can calculate it, but I don't have it. So there is also one additional damage consideration that oversight or we weren't certain of until we got through with this. And as Chuck mentioned, there is a private 24-inch tile that will be taken over and become part of the ditch system once this improvement goes forward. That tile was paid for as a private tile. It was put in the mid-90s. We had Mr. Brandel estimate that the cost at that time to install that similar tile as a public system would have been about $59,100. we say that for the system to purchase that, because it is not a new tile, that we would apply about a 50% depreciated value to that cost, and that the Dean and Patricia Roberts property should have an additional $29,550 worth of damages paid to buy that tile from them. So I think, Mr. Chairman, that is as much as I can explain, and probably too much already, and it's confusing.
Thank you, Ron.
Any questions to Ron from the board?
Yes.
So when you say you don't have a solid number, I mean, I'm sure it's always hard to get to that point where you get a solid number. But somebody could go out there, I'm just throwing it out there, this fall and tile some other part of the land. Couldn't they tie it into their system and would change the coefficients slightly and change those kind of things? I mean, it's hard to get to a...
Well, the only reason I don't have a final recommended number for the total benefits is because of that other 38-acre potential change that I calculated, but I didn't put it together if this one goes in and that one doesn't go in.
Okay.
The total with the two changes, and it's only a couple $1,000s off, says the improvement benefit goes to $1,159,293.30. There's a couple $1,000s difference in that because that number would include the small changes for that branch. I think it's branch 4 in the inclusion of that 38 acres.
Okay.
But because there was no change in cost from the inclusion of that 38 acres, it was a matter of trying to balance, reduce some benefits because the efficiency was going to be smaller, and then add in those additional acres because you're not changing the tile itself. And it was within $1,000 or $2,000 of matching the original numbers for that branch. But that's the total that I had, and then in talking with the renter this morning, he said that at this point he's not going to pursue including that. So I thought I had a final number, but it's not.
Okay.
But it's within a couple $1,000s of that $1,159,000 for the improvement. The actual benefit number will be in a exhibit to be attached to the order. So it does have a fixed number that will be there. I just don't have the exact number right now.
Okay. And then just a question about the other comment, Dean and Patricia Roberts property. They're the ones that put in the private tile for approximately $59,000 value. Is there other people's drainage, water, or anything going into that system at all? Is it specifically just off their own property? I mean, I'm just kind of curious.
Well, my understanding is that it is currently a private tile, and if they've allowed other people to hook onto it, that's their private decision.
That's their private.
Once this system is improved, it will become part of the county system and be a county tile, where other people have the full right to use that as the outlet for their water from those properties above this piece. This is the lower section of branch 4 from the main, about a half a mile worth of tile. The proposal is to extend a 24 and attach it to that upstream to improve everybody else upstream's outlet. But rather than duplicate that 24 with another county branch, to just go ahead and utilize that because it is relatively new and does meet the criteria that they were talking about petitioning for this improvement.
Okay. And then, just another question I had, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but since he asked for questions for Ron, I just had one too. On some of the maps I was trying to take in all the information, look at all the maps, the branches, the reports. And when you do all that, there's just a tremendous amount of information. But when I was looking at it, there's quite a few areas that on one map are listed. I mean, they're blue. I mean, they look like it's a wetland, that it's actually a wetland. But then you look at another map and you can tell it's being farmed. So it actually has drainage in that wetland, doesn't it? I mean, they've got drainage tile in that wetland, and when it's not a super wet year, they farm that area, and if it's a wet year, it's not being farmed. I mean, it's a very general question, I know, but it just is on my mind, and I just don't know how that's looked at, because you've got 3 or 4 areas there where looks like there's ponding, and there's water, and then you look at another map, and it's dry, and there's obviously rows in there where it's been tilled.
Yeah.
And so I can't go out and look at it, every little...
That is some of the difference between the redetermination, which is evaluation of the system as it currently exists. And although most all of those acres are currently used for cultivation, the capacity says that the highest and best use is maybe as hay and pasture, because our analysis said currently they're only getting 40% of their potential benefit out of those acres, because they do pond during larger storms.
Okay.
The blue map showed those areas of potential restoration. They are all currently farmed, they are all currently tiled, but they have a restricted capacity outlet. So all of the water leaves there. The improvement will remove that water slightly faster from those lowland areas to where you don't have the ponding for as long a period. There still will be ponding, especially during large storms. That's why we didn't even with the 1-inch runoff, you still only got 92% of the optimum, because during large storms, water's still going to sit in those.
Yeah.
We've calculated the difference, saying that the most they're going to get is 85% of their optimum production, because it is restricted still to only a 1/2-inch discharge capacity.
Okay.
So the blue areas are just indicating the lowest areas within this overall watershed. There are no restored or restorable wetlands right now that won't impact the current agricultural production on those acres.
And some of the surrounding property owners, do they use that low area as an outlet, or is it just hooked in through the tile system there?
Well, the tile goes through and provides an outlet to those low areas. I can't tell you how many tile are hooked onto those, but the public outlet already exists into all of those low areas. There is nothing out there that doesn't have a county tile in it right now. It's just it's undersized. And in looking at potential restoration areas, I think that's what the map indicated, is you could break the tile and restore a wetland there versus improving it. The economics of that probably aren't very good at the $9,000 an acre average that I said, because who wants to give up their tillable acres when they already are being farmed?
Okay. That helps me. It does help. Thanks, Ron.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
If there are no additional questions from the board, we will now open the floor to public comment. This hearing is being recorded, so please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Also, as a courtesy to others wishing to comment, please limit your comments to fewer than 5 minutes per person. Anybody wish to comment on ditch 30? Go ahead. No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Bill Gardner. I'm here on behalf of the Blue Earth Soil and Water Conservation District, Blue Earth County Soil and Water Conservation District, and I also have land within Ditch 34. I just want to give you my opinion on this and take it for what it's worth. I'm not against the project itself. What I'm against is the size of the project, I guess. And the other thing I'm kind of upset about is the fact that a project of this size is only, how can I say this? It seems to me there should be more engineers involved, more engineers given the option of bidding on a project of this size. We're talking over $2 million. and it seems to me that there should be more engineers involved, maybe get a few more bids. Me personally, I know I'm talking apples and oranges here, but when I'm buying a vehicle, I want to, get a few different ideas, a few different options, and go with what seems to be the best option. Here we have one price we're going with, and we're supposed to accept that. Like I said before, I'm not against the project. I'm against the project that is currently proposed. I would like to see other options, I guess. I don't know what those are. I'm not an engineer. And there was one other thing, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But I want to, keep under the 5 minutes here. But speaking on behalf of the Soil and Water District, we also would like to, and I see Carol is here from the district as well, one of our supervisors. We'd like to be more involved in these projects, especially on a project of this size. And I know it can get to a point, there's a point where too many cooks spoil the broth. I understand that. And if you get too many people involved, nothing gets accomplished. I get that. But I would just like to see the Soil and Water Board more involved in these types of projects in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. Any other comments from the public? Please stand up and give your name and state your address.
I'm Dean Roberts. My address is 51845 208th Street, Lake Crystal, Minnesota. I'm one of the landowners in this that the ditch goes through me. I've got several of those green spots that you talk about. They've all been tiled. The original ditch, 34, was established in 1913. And I'm told by the old timers that it worked pretty good at first, but then everybody tiled everything, and then it just isn't big enough for that. Now, one of the things that makes farmable farmland in Blue Earth County work, we'd have probably 20 to 30% good farmland in Blue Earth County if we didn't have drainage. This nation couldn't feed itself without drainage and irrigation. We'd be an importer of food. Water quality. This system, other than the very outlet, is a tile system. The best water qualities come out of tile systems. That's been demonstrated. There's no perfectly clean water. My rain gauge turns green after rain if you leave the water in it. Where'd that come from? That come out of the sky. There's no perfectly so-called clean water unless you distill it. The system is cost effective. It will make our production in our area, maintain it. This year it's all dry. You don't see any wet spots. Go around sometimes. There's a lot of them. And they all go down. We farm every bit of them. We farm some of them twice. Water goes down, we do it again. I planted about 75 acres of land, between the 1st of July and the 10th of July last year, for the second time. The water had gone down, so I did it. This should be a big, big help for us, and it is cost effective.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dean.
Any more comments from the public?
Mr. Chair, I do have one more thing, if it's okay.
You come right up ahead.
When I met with the viewers last week at the meeting, the viewers and Craig Austenson, I brought up the idea of, and I don't know if this is in the amendment or not, I haven't looked at the final project, but the possibility of, if this does go through, extending, right now it sits at a 15-year payoff with a 4% interest. I brought up the idea of maybe possibly stretching this out to a 20-year payoff with a 4.5% interest, so people like myself would be able to swallow it a little bit better. As it sits right now, I have a hard enough time paying for my property taxes, and you're going to add another X amount of dollars on it. It would be really difficult. So I don't know if that has been mentioned anywhere in this project. The viewer, Ron did say that is possible. The maximum is 23 years. I don't think we want to go that far. And he said, and maybe you can expound more on this than I can, but because I'm just going by what we talked about last Thursday. So I don't know if that's still on the table or if that's an option, so I'm just going to throw that out there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Come up here and you want to comment on that, Ron?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. What I did in the notices that were mailed out is I used an estimated financing period of 15 years at 4%, and that is consistent with the most recent bond sales that Blue Earth County has done on similar types of projects. I always have a concern about extending financing too long when you're doing partial improvements, because there's going to be repair or other issues that may come up on those parts not being improved. This particular project, because it is such a significant part of the project or of the ditch system that is being improved, it was our discussion that I would not have any issues with going a full 20-year finance on this, because there aren't going to be major, the system's all going to be new. There should not be any other major expenses that come up within that 20-year period. So ultimately, I understand it is a bond consultant and a board decision as to the best and most practical financing. And like I said, I don't usually like to recommend extending payments out to where you're going to get overlapping assessments on maintenance and improvement. But this one is one of those where there shouldn't be a lot of maintenance expense in the future, because it's all going to be new. So I do concur with him that would help the payment process. Ultimately, it is where the best terms and interest are when the bonds are sold. So,
thank you, Rob. Craig, do we have different lengths of time that we could extend this out to, or if somebody wants to pay it in 15 they can, or up to 20 they can?
If we're going to be financing this in-house like we discussed earlier that we've done on other ditches, going 20 years, that's be up to the board. It's a little more flexible doing stuff in-house than it would be bonding. Many years ago when we first looked at bonding, going 15 versus 20 years, the interest rate jumped so high it wasn't worth it. Now in-house, we can keep the interest rate down, so that's not an issue. Also in-house, we don't have to worry about prepayments. If someone says, no, I don't want to go 20 years, they don't have to. They can prepay at any time. So they can pay it off in 10, 15.
Thanks for that information. Okay, any further comments from the public?
My name is Steve Barnett, and I reside at 20519 523 Avenue in Lake Crystal. And I guess I just want to get this out. I've had my brother has had some discussions with Will. We're the ones getting all the water. We get the open ditch, and currently we don't have a final number on the damages. We've had discussions with Ron and Craig on some of our concerns. We have CRP land. We've initiated some discussions with those people. They're telling us that they're not going to make a spot determination on how this will affect our contract with that easement area that the county wants to provide around the ditch. So it may affect our current contract. It may affect future enrollment in that land. So that's where we sit right now, and I guess I just want to make sure that gets said. So I'm here representing my 85-year-old mother, who is the landowner of that ditch area. So.
Thank you, Steve. Nice seeing you again.
The only guy I lost to an arm wrestling.
That's right. I just have a question for Chuck on this topic. Did you mention during your report that we could leave this open to additional damages at the end of the project if issues like that would arise?
Yes, we can. We have the damage area shown, and we have, I think, about 3.25 acres. If there is some of that that is in CRP when the project is completed, we can include that as damages at the end of the project. So we can include that.
Question, I think the question he had, though, is will it impact the contract that he has with the CRP program? Is there something that anybody's aware of here, attorney, anybody here that might know that can affect it, or your past practice with it?
I have the grading shown in detail here. We're not grading anywhere significantly outside of the ditch itself, so it shouldn't affect his current CRP contract.
Okay.
So,
Although that's not your determination.
it's not my determination, but that's my opinion. I'd say that's my opinion. So.
How many years do you have left on your current contract?
You know, I'd have to get those contracts out and see when that expires. I believe we put it in for 15 years, so I think it's 2022, but I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Would you be open to the idea of leaving that discussion open down the road for additional damages?
Yeah, we want to see what those people say, if it's going to affect the current contract, because we just don't know right now.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I cannot speak for the soil and water people, but I do know that there is a memorandum of agreement at the state office between the federal and the state that states that when a ditch system acquires a buffer strip and that buffer strip area is currently under a CRP contract, there will be no reduction in the contract payments for the current contract period. Upon renewal, and that depends on the farm program and all kinds of things as to when that current contract expires and what the new CRP requirements are. But as far as renewal, any renewal will then start at the edge of the acquired buffer strip rather than at the current tillage level. So the current contract and payments will not be affected from my understanding. The future re-enrollment would mean that he would not be able to re-enroll that area, if any, acquired by the grass buffer that's being installed with this ditch system. The balance of the CRP enrollment is all dependent upon the conditions of the CRP program at the time that the current contract expires.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
All right. Any further comments from the public? Any further comments from the public in reference to ditch 34? Hearing no further comments from the public. Oh, sure. I didn't see you jump up there.
No.
Good comments last night, by the way.
Thank you. I was Greg Michelson, Lake Crystal. I was wondering if you were still going to solicit bids for this bond project, or are you just going to do it in-house?
What's the, Craig?
Well, it was planned to do in-house. We could always look at, see what the bid costs are. That's one of the reasons why, if you look in the board packet, we did include a resolution of financing. This is not required for the in-house, is my understanding, but I thought it would be just so we have that option to look at outside, bonding.
If we can get it cheaper?
If we can get it cheaper, if it's better for the system, we do have that option by passing this resolution.
Now, what would that make a difference on length of time?
That's a good question. If you want to leave it open for 20 to 15 years, if we can get a better rate.
Because a bond usually is a 15-year?
Well, yeah. Last time we tried to go for 20 years, it wasn't worth it because of the rates, the actual payments the landowners made individually, because the rates went up so significantly, were almost identical to what it was for 15 years. So why extend it another 5 years if they're not saving anything yearly? And so without looking at and actually contacting the bonding companies, that could change. It could change next month. It could change. So that's kind of a risk if you go say, okay, we have to do this outside bonding. In-house, of course, the board has a lot more control.
We're locked in at 4% by
Yeah.
statute, aren't we?
I believe so. So that's 4%.
So it'll be up to us to decide if we want to do 15 or 20 years as far as the financing.
That is correct.
And I'm wondering if Greg's question also didn't include bidding. Did you mean bidding for who's doing the work?
Well, that also, but I mean, bidding on the bond is what I was talking about, the interest rate. So
Thank you. From what I understand, that's in there. We're gonna leave that door open.
This leaves the door open.
Okay.
That's
So
why
answer
we're
your questions,
including it.
yes.
Yeah, I have no problem with Blue Earth County having the option of taking rates at the same as a competitive bid. I just was wondering if you're going to get bids to find out what it is, competitive rate. But there's a state law that you're the least and the most you can charge is 4%. That's the rate.
I think that's right, isn't it, Bob? 4%?
That rate was set by the county board.
We said that.
So, you know, it's not the maximum the board could do, but for this year, I believe it's what we will do.
We certainly will look at other opportunities too. That makes sense.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Chuck's got a question.
Chuck?
I didn't mention it in my report, but just the project will be publicly bid for the work. And
We would expect that.
yes, but I just wanted to clarify that it will be publicly bid. It has to be publicly bid. So,
Because these are all estimates, correct?
yes, these are estimates based on the last 6 months of projects coming in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Again, are there any further comments from the public? I ask one more time, is there any further comments from the public? All right, hearing no further comments from the public, we will close the floor and bring the issue before the Drainage Authority. All right, we have option A.
Maybe I should review that. Also, I'd like to make a point. During the testimony here, Ron's talked about the benefits. Number 4 on option A, the estimated benefits are greater than the total estimated cost, including damage. That's one of the findings the board has to find before it can approve the project. That number is not. He did not have a hard number. The final number for that. But the number we're looking at originally, before the changes were made, the net benefits to the improvement was $1,122,794.73. That was what was sent out to the landowners and presented to the board in the original packet. And again, that number's changed a little bit. The benefits or the cost of the improvement was $299,200. So at that time, we had a cushion of $823,594.73 cushion. So what I want to emphasize, even though we don't have an exact number from the viewers, we have a huge cushion.
The benefits are there.
The benefits are there. Yeah. We're not. That will not be a problem, even though we don't have an exact number.
All right.
I still just had a couple questions too, if it's okay, before to ask Craig. Is that all right, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Okay. Something just came to my mind. You know, it's something that has to happen down the road, and I'm not as familiar with it. I've seen it, of course, out in the field, but it's the process that we go through from changing it from a designated stream, which it is right now, to an ag ditch. Is that something that needs to be examined any further, or is that something that just occurs?
You're talking about DNR protected waters?
Well, that section that's going to become it's a stream now, apparently.
I don't know. It's unnamed. It's not on the protected waters list.
It's not. Okay.
Yeah. That's is it or is it not on the protected waters list? That's the issue right now.
Okay.
And I think Chuck will answer that even better.
That is a question I have, because it's a big issue right now looming amongst all the counties and throughout the states.
It was not a protected water, and a portion of that area was actually part of the ditch system.
It was.
But we are extending it downstream, but not into a protected water.
Okay.
If it was a protected water, we would need a separate
I was just wondering about the
permit from the
process.
DNR
I didn't
for
see
that.
anything for that. I was just wondering. I didn't see anything in the report.
And the DNR did review that also.
Okay.
So.
Have any more questions there, Drew?
Well, most of them I think are answered. The comment or the question I have, I wasn't sure Craig would know. Was this project recommended to be financed in-house? That was all along the assumption? 'Cause we had certain ones we listed, I know, for doing, this year in-house, and certain ones that we're going to bid out, but we were talking about here earlier about possibility of bidding outside.
This was on the list that Lisa provided to the board at that workshop. So this was one of those projects that was planned to be in-house.
Okay. Just wanted to verify that. I didn't verify it anywhere.
Yeah, we still wanted to give the option just in case.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. That's the questions.
So, the difference between option A and option B and option C, what's...
Well, option A is assuming you just approve the project. Those are the different actions the board can take. You can say you can approve the project, which is option A, or you can go option B, which is basically if you say that the petitioners and the petition of the project does not meet those 6 criteria, then you go option B, and if you have to reject it, you have to reject it for cause. And one of the 3 causes that you can reject it for are listed on option B. Okay. So basically, either your option A, saying yes, we're approving the project, or option B, you're denying or rejecting the project, and that would be options 1, 2, or 3. You have to actually specifically say why it's being rejected.
Understand.
Or option C, saying we don't have enough information to make a ruling today, so you can continue the hearing. Those are the 3 things the board can do.
All right. What are the wishes of the board?
I'd make a motion we approve option A and move forward with the project.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
I was going to say, does that include the whole thing, including options with financing, or?
That's separate.
That's for separate. That's what I want to make sure.
But I had a question too. Do we make just a simple resolution then to move forward? But do we look at the other resolutions in the packet then for accepting the reports and that sort of thing? I mean, we haven't done that.
If you look at the findings in order, that the draft order that's in your packet, that of course that has a list
all these different resolutions. So what I'm asking is, what we're choosing as a board generally to move forward, if that's the case, but then we still have to go forward, don't we, and accept these resolutions for each report, the engineer's report.
That's part of the findings in order.
It is. So
yeah.
So you mean we're just going to do it under one heading, and that's
what we've always done in the past.
Oh, okay.
That's on page 139, right? That's the whole.
That's correct.
That's the whole thing right there. Just lists everything. If you read the finding of facts, that's all. It's listed right in there. So that's what we got on the table right now.
Okay.
Any further comments? Seeing no further comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? It's passed.
Break time.
That's what I was saying.
I will make a motion I'll move the motion to open it up for financing for bid to see.
Yeah.
Second.
That's a resolution.
A second.
All right, we got a motion and a second for the financing, to open the financing up. Are there any comments or questions?
I think it's always good to see there's something better than what the county can do too, so
you bet.
Might as well.
Yeah.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? That's passed.
And so then I have a question. Does that leave us open then to the 20-year financing if we want to or not?
Yes.
Or do an amendment?
Yeah.
No, the financing will. That can be all part of the bid.
They can.
Yeah, if you ask for 10, 15, 20 year, that's just all part of the negotiations.
Okay. So I'll look at that, because that's an option I think that we should look at.
Yeah.
18-year,
20-year,
that was get the best on.
You could order that right now. I mean,
that's what I'm asking. If that's something that we should consider.
We can get bids on all of them, correct, Bob? We can get bids on all of that, the different lengths and stuff.
But it's set up for a 15-year recommendation right now.
The disclosures, the way I'd look at it, the disclosure to the landowners for the payments were for 15 years.
But we can go greater.
We could probably go greater, if not, because that would be a lesser payment to them, as long as we let the landowners know we went longer. because they can always prepay.
Right.
I think we'd have issues if we reduced it to like 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because then I think we'd have to renotice the landowners, because that's going to change their finances. Because they're going to have to pay a higher payment, a yearly payment.
We have to approve the mechanism.
But as a board, if we want to leave it open to that 20-year window, do we need to make a separate small resolution?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the resolution does not have a time frame attached to it.
I just know the recommendations in the report had that.
Right. But I think with the motion about this particular resolution, it still provides flexibility.
It does.
We have to approve that. We have to approve the resolution for the financing. So we'll have the final say.
Yeah, the final. Okay.
All right,
Thank you for
I'm
clarifying that.
going to call a short break, about a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back. All right, welcome back. Welcome to the County Ditch 12 repair hearing. If you've not already done so, please sign the attendance sheet. And we will now have Ditch Manager Craig Austenson review the jurisdictional documents.
Okay. This is a repair hearing. We did send notice to all landowners on the system. No other requirements no other notices were required on this particular system, as this is just a repair hearing. So with that, we don't have any other jurisdictional documents.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the engineer, Chuck.
Hi, Chuck Brando with INS Group. We did a preliminary study for the repair of County Ditch 12. It's a 1,400-acre watershed. I like using the maps. So, 1,400-acre watershed on the east side of Mankato. Highway 22 is a portion of Highway 22 is in the watershed. It's an all-open ditch system. If you recall, the downstream portion was turned over to the city last year. The portion that's west of Highway 22. After that hearing, there was a petition to repair the project. There's a couple things going on currently. The area just east of Highway 22 is being annexed into the city of Mankato. As part of this project, there is a request to clean and move a small portion of the area just east of 22 as part of the construction of Huffman Road. The way the ditch is very close to the existing gravel road at that location, so it's being asked that the city of Mankato be allowed to clean and slightly modify the channel at that location. There's also a proposed street as part of the East Middle School development that is going in just east of 22, and a crossing will be installed at that location. So we're asking the Drainage Authority that crossing can be installed. It will be a bridge with a natural bottom, approximately, I believe, 11 feet wide by 3 to 4 feet tall. So we'll have adequate capacity. We surveyed portions of the ditch system to try to establish the legal ditch grade, looking at the crossing at Highway 22, looking at the crossing at Carver Road, and other crossings in the system. We found that the Highway 22 crossing is very close to the legal ditch grade, but there are portions of the system that have 2 to 3 feet of sediment built up in them. And as part of the report, there were pictures taken. I have a board of those here. You can see this culvert, for instance, is very close to legal ditch grade, but it's a 36-inch culvert that's halfway filled up with sediment. Here, you have the ditch system is filled up with sediment. You can't even see that it's still a ditch. Same at this location. Here's another culvert that is in disrepair. Another culvert that is in disrepair, filled up. This picture is actually the culvert at Carver Road. That culvert is approximately 2.5 feet higher than the current legal ditch grade. So there's definitely evidence that the system is in need of repair. The proposal for repair is to do a 2-phase project, doing the very westerly portion from Carver Road, which will be County Road 12, to Highway 22 this year, or if approved this year, with the second phase being done in future years after a redetermination of benefits is done. There were 2 informational meetings with landowners. That's what we talked about, and that's what I guess we've been asked to move forward with the project. There is also a large wetland complex in the watershed. It's proposed, we've met with the DNR, that some sort of structure be put on the end of the ditch at that wetland complex to protect it. I've included an estimate for a concrete weir. In talking with the DNR, there may be less expensive options that we could do for that outlet. The proposal for repairs, the phase 1 would be $95,000. Phase 2 would be $253,000 for a total of $348,000. The trees would not be clear cut. It would be a spot removal of trees to get in and clean the ditch, clean out the underbrush, very similar to what was done on County Ditch 12 west of 22. Correct me, Craig, was it last year or the year before? I believe it was the fall before. Yeah. Fall of 2013. So we'd leave the major trees. There's some value to the development areas. It has also been identified as a corridor in the a couple environmental studies. So we would clean the ditch and make the ditch function, but leave the majority of the trees in that area. That does make cleaning a little bit more costly than standard cleanings. So that's why the costs are slightly higher. A standard ditch cleaning is usually $3 to $4 a foot. We're estimating this at about $7 a foot.
Where would the dirt go if they clean it out then? Do they have to haul it away?
We would ask the adjacent farmland to take it, or we would have to haul it somewhere else. So that's another reason that the cost is slightly higher, is that we can't just clean it out and place it next to the channel. Put it in non-wetland, non-wooded areas. That's a summary of the repair. It's our opinion that based on the petition, the system is out of repair. We also did talk with Mr. Forsberg about future County Road 12. He said that potentially the culvert crossing there could be eliminated from this project, which we did take the cost out for that, and it could be part of the County Road 12 project when that goes in. That was another reason to split it into 2 phases. So we would clean an area that was being taken over by the city or being annexed into the city, and then after the culvert is installed for County Road 12, the rest of the system could be cleaned and repaired. The system does affect farmland, but it also affects a few houses on the east side of the system. So there has been flooding, and I believe that's why the petition was put forward, both for farmland and for basements flooding.
Are there any other questions from the board for Chuck?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck.
If there are no additional questions from the board, we will now open the floor for public comment. This hearing is being recorded, so please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and also as a courtesy to others wishing to comment, please limit your comments to fewer than 5 minutes or less. Please, if you wish to comment on this, please come to the podium. State your name and address. Anybody wishing to comment, please come to the podium. State your name and address.
John Messenbrink. My address is 7765 East 175th Street, Prior Lake, Minnesota. I own the farm right on the corner of what will be the new 12 and I don't know the other cross street, but we've got a larger wetland to the north side of our farm. And my question is on the assessment. We've got the ditch cleaning, which it looks like there definitely could use some repair. But on my property, if they clean the ditch to what would be, they're calling the normal ditch level, it would drain the wetland. And I guess the wetland would no longer exist. So they've provided funds to put a structure in to hold the water back in the wetland. Well, that water would back right up to our property. So I don't see the benefit at all coming back to our property. And I don't have a drawing that shows exactly the way our property is drained, but I could find that out. But I want some research done on that to find out if you're going to clean the ditch, fine. But if you're going to put a structure in to hold the water level where it is now or higher, what benefits are we gaining on the back end? I don't see it. And I don't have all the drawings, but I'm sure we can figure that out over some time with some newer information. But it does look like it needs repair. I don't know if the costs are right or not, but I'm sure it affects some of the people upstream to some effect. I'm sure that's how it got here. But I think we need to do a little bit more work on this before we just take off and start doing some things, before we know exactly what the repercussions are to all the landowners around the wetland. And I've got a $23,000 assessment, and I can guarantee you that the farmer that rents our property is not going to benefit $1 from this ditch cleaning, especially if they put the structure in. And then who pays for that structure? Do the residents pay for that? Or is that going to be a fee that's brought up by the DNR or someone else? I mean, I think there's a lot of homework that needs to be done here yet before a firm decision can be made, one way or the other on this project. Not saying it doesn't need to be done, but I think we need to do a little bit more homework so everybody is kind of on the same page. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Chuck, you want to answer some of those questions?
Sure. This is a repair report. This is not approving the final plans for the repair. If the repair report were approved, we would get a permit from the DNR, which would, in talking with them, working with them to establish what the OHW is for that wetland, and getting the permit. The permit fees are anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. So we wanted to see if the board wanted to move ahead with the repair before we got a permit to establish what elevation we'd be at. It'd be my opinion that we would match what the existing drainage is out of that wetland area.
Okay.
If that answers the questions.
Yep. Thank you. All right. Are there any other comments from the public?
Ken Lomas, 58 928 211 Lane, Mankato. We live out there right at that slough at the mouth of that ditch there. And over the years, I keep losing more and more land. I've got some old pictures here from back that shows how everything was farmed in one big field, and now it's a bunch of little patches because the land won't drain properly. And like this spring, of course, we haven't had the snow melt and we haven't had the spring rains, but last year we had a terrible problem, and it backs up to my neighbors' houses and backs up to my house because that slough overflows because it's not properly draining. And that's why we want to get it cleaned, and it should benefit every piece of farmland in the watershed, because it's all going to drain better once it's cleaned out. And I know John said he's not sure which way the water flows off of his land, and we probably do need to find that out. But even if it does flow towards the slough, which we're not sure that it does, if he wanted to improve his farmland, he could tile tile it down to the ditch. So if he wanted to put in some tile after the ditch was cleaned, he could tile it to the south. In fact, it runs right along what's going to be County Road 12 now. So I know a good deal of his land drains into the ditch that's on Carver Road now, and then that ditch runs right into that ditch. So it's not just going towards the slough, it's going towards County Road 12. That's this land right here. And a lot of it drains right into the ditch and goes right into the road ditch and then into the ditch. So I think there would be a benefit for John there either way. And of course all the other remaining farmland around there would drain into that ditch better too, which they'd get better yields if the land was better drained. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Okay. I'd like to make a point here. The petitioners at the information meeting also asked that we do a redetermination of benefits between Phase 1. Phase 1 is kind of time sensitive, so that's why it's been broken up into 2 phases. But to actually do a redetermination of benefits of the entire system before we do Phase 2, which would actually, answer some of the questions that are being asked today. So
that makes sense. Okay. Any further comments from the public?
Sorry, Ken Wilmus again here, 58-928-211 Lane here. If anybody's interested in looking at these old aerial maps to show you how much less land I have to farm right now than I did before, you're welcome to look at them here.
You want to bring them up here, Ken? I'll pass them around.
Yes, some of us have seen them, but not everybody.
You want to look at them, Bob? Thanks, Ken.
We'll get them back to you, Ken.
Yeah, you'll get them back.
Yeah. And then another comment once. I was just talking about John's land draining on County Road 12, but it also drains all the way along here on this gravel township road too. Some of it drains into that ditch, which ends up into that ditch. So I think there would definitely be a benefit for that property also.
All right.
Michael McCarty, City of Mankato, 10 Civic Center Plaza. Regardless of the commissioner's outcome today, I just wanted to reiterate if you guys would consider approving, if it goes one way or the other, the improvements necessary for the Prairie Winds Middle School, if that needs to be separated out from the rest of your project, the improved crossing for Prairie Winds Drive and then the work at Trunk Highway 22 and Hoffman Road, in case the commission decides to go one way or the other and separate that out. Thanks.
Thank you. How is that set, Craig?
that is actually part of the way the draft resolution was signed, that we would be also approving those changes for the Prairie Wind School District, including moving the County Dish 12 a little bit to the south for safety reasons away from Hoffman Road, and also installing that additional crossing. That's how the resolution was drafted. Of course, you can always make changes if you so wish.
All right. Thanks. Okay. Any further comments from the public? Mr. Drummer.
Hello, Mike Drummer, 20127 599th Avenue. We own the 34 acres to the north next to Coles, and we have the 70 acres that's right the intersection of Hoffman Road and Highway 22. I was hoping to hear what I heard is that you're going to do the redistribution of benefits. ISG has also done the street work for the subdivision that is Prairie Winds. It's my understanding that about 50 to 60 acres of the 70-acre parcel at the southeast intersection, which is known as the Regan Farm, where the majority of this creek runs through in Phase 1. Most of it runs through in Phase 1. The water of that is being taken to the south, and there's going to be a directional boring across Highway 83 and taken into that route. So we're asking for the redistribution of benefits because that water is actually coming out of your ditch and going a different direction. I'm sure since Chuck is the same engineer that he can speak to that a little farther, but I was glad to hear that the second phase is going to look at being a redistribution of the benefits. And the timing of this is interesting in that all of that stuff would have been done in advance of the ditch being requested, but it is what it is, and that's the comment that I would like to make. And Chuck, if you answer how much of the water is actually leaving the watershed on that property, would be great. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Um, As part of the Prairie Wind School, I'll show it to the board, then I'll show it to the crowd. This area that I hatched out will be, as it develops, drained to the south, so it won't go directly into County Ditch 12. We worked with the city of Mankato to do that. There were some flooding concerns on downstream. It also created a pond that this entire development could be utilized and greatly reduce peak flows out of this area to protect further areas downstream. So the what Mike referred to as the Regan Farm is right here. That area will be drained to the south. And then if they develop in the future, I believe it's the Strobel and Rouse properties would be drained that way also. I don't have the exact acreage, but you'd have a percentage of the watershed that would come out of the system. So by the time a redetermination is done, that pond system should be in place, so that could be adjusted accordingly.
So that's for the rainwater requirements for the development of that area?
Yes, to meet MPCA requirements, but also City of Mankato requirements for rate retention. And I think we're reducing peak flows out of that area by about 90%.
Out of that specific area?
Out of the development area.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any further comments from the public? And last time, any further comments from the public? Hearing no further comments from the public, we will close the floor and bring the issue before the Drainage Authority. What's the wishes of the board?
I'll move the phase 1 there.
Second.
There's been a motion. Is there a second? Got a second?
Okay. Just a point of clarification. You're just approving just phase 1 or the whole thing in 2 phases?
Yes, the whole repair.
Okay.
It would be obviously the phase 1 would take place first.
So
that would be the findings of fact and order on page 20 of
That's what I was looking here at.
packet part B.
All right. There's been a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Drew?
And so, Craig, I just want to get this straight, is that I'm sure at first they looked at just doing a clean out, but because of the construction planning that's going on and the identified areas that Chuck had found where there's a need for more than just a clean out in this area. I mean, it needs, if there wasn't planned for construction, do you think it would just be a clean out, or do you think it would also need some improvement to that?
Well, if this wasn't being in construction area or planned future development, we'd be just removing all the trees and just cleaning it.
Just take it all out.
Or just take it out. That would be the cheaper option, as Chuck said. But because of the change in uses and landowner requests, and also they've requested that we keep as many trees as possible. That's kind of the difference, and Chuck, if he wants to elaborate on that at all.
That's correct, and one thing that I didn't mention is this is also a DNR protected water, and a DNR permit will be required. That's why we met with the DNR up front. They generally agreed with the plan in keeping as much buffer as we can. So that's another added stipulation that whether this was a development area or not, we'd have to follow or follow. So.
Yeah. And then the other question I had was the order of business. I know we already have a motion and a second, but so we can discuss this. There's a request then for a redetermination of benefits. How does that fit in?
That would be a separate order. That's the way it's presented to the board here. It's a separate order, and it would after you're completed your business on the repairs.
It doesn't impact that in any way. Then it doesn't change the flavor of this whole process?
It's several landowners have made the request that we do a redetermination of benefits for the second phase of the project, before that is done.
Okay.
That was a request, and so that's, like I said, it's a separate order.
Yeah, and it's the redetermination of benefits then will affect any and all landowners that are...
Yeah, and it could be interesting, where there's a lot of change of use, and I'm not sure how the viewers are going to handle that.
Yeah, it'd be very, very new for them, I think, in some ways, maybe.
Yeah, for some of them you do.
Yeah. But, okay, just wanted to ask concerns there.
If there's no further comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Okay.
Passed.
Now we come up with actually appointing the viewers for the redetermination of benefits, or I could check the resolution to financing. Yes, will be the second. Excuse me. Resolution to financing on this particular. Again, it was just like we were planning to do this one in-house with our at that 4%, but we just do the resolution of financing to give us an option in case we change our mind and do want to look for outside funding.
What's the wishes of the board?
I'll move the resolution to finance.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to open it up for financing. Any comments, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed.
And now we come to the redetermination of benefits. The viewers met this weekend, and they kind of changed things up on me, so there is a couple of name changes from what was presented in the original board packet. What they wanted to change to is Ron. The viewers would be Ron Rehnquist, Chuck Bauer, Tom Mahoney, and then Bill Anderson as an alternate would be the viewers appointed in the order.
Commissioners, I put a revised resolution at your spot with those names.
All right.
I would move the new viewers.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any comments, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? That's passed.
Okay.
Did you need one for redetermination of?
That was it.
For 78? That's our next hearing.
Oh,
yeah.
There we go.
Okay. So, yeah, we do have another one coming up.
Thank you.
A lot of ditches today.
Lots of ditches.
Well,
we love our
Vicki's
water.
asking for redetermination of benefits. So we have...
Well, that's the one we just did, with the appointment of viewers.
And that's just an amendment then, or a change?
No, viewers to redetermination of the benefits.
All right. There's separate ones in here.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, do we need a break or not?
Better not.
2 minutes, maybe. I just let people entertain.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
2 minutes, I guess. Kind of a musical here.
County Ditch 78 improvement preliminary hearing. If you've not already done so, please sign the attendance sheet. We will now have Ditch Manager Craig Austenson review the jurisdictional documents.
As far as hearing is concerned, this is the preliminary hearing. This is to determine whether or not the board should order a detailed super report and order determination of benefits, appoint viewers for the determination of benefits on this particular system. Hearing notice was mailed on March 9th, 2015, and we do have a DNR report for this hearing. I don't know if there's anybody from the DNR here. They're still not here. Still not here. Maybe it might be a chance. Statute requires, if there's no one from the DNR, that it's required that the DNR report be read into the record, so I'll do that now. Again, this is from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Division of Ecological Water Resources. Letter dated March 9th, and addressed to myself, Craig Austenson, Ditch Manager. Subject is the preliminary engineering report for County Ditch 78. Mr. Austenson, on behalf of the Director of the Division of Ecological Water Resources of the Department of Natural Resources, I offer the following comments on the preliminary engineering report for the project reference above in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 103.255. Of general concern in all proposed ditch improvement is the cumulative effect that the project may have on downstream water resources. Natural resources and property owners in terms of quality and quantity of water is exceeded. Project-specific and cumulative impacts from ditch projects can result in downstream flooding, erosion, and decrease in water quality. For these reasons, we have urged careful evaluation of the project to ensure that it is consistent with priority concerns identified in the Blue Ridge County Water Management Plan. The water plan includes priorities for improving surface and groundwater quality, agricultural runoff, and impaired waters. The water plan prioritizes addressing agricultural non-point source pollution, including the reduction of erosion and runoff. During peak flows, example, spring runoff from agricultural lands can be reduced through the use of cover crops. Cover crops help retain topsoil on the land, improve the soil structure, aid in infiltration and storage of soil moistures, and improve water quality. The retention of health of topsoil is vital to the long-term agricultural production. The use of cover crops in watersheds would reduce the need to expand ditch systems, stabilize ditch and stream banks, and decrease frequency of ditch cleanouts, resulting in lower landowner costs and ditch maintenance. An appropriate mechanism to reduce sediment loads in ditches and public waters is to be established through required perennial vegetation buffers throughout Blue Earth County, Minnesota. Indicates ditches must be planted with perennial vegetation for any of the proceedings to establish, construct, improve, or do any work affecting a public drainage system. The permanent strips of perennial vegetations, preferably native species, shall be 6.5 feet width on each side of the ditch. Landowners should be encouraged to use native species, that is, deeper root systems that will help stabilize the ditch system. The ditch banks. Appropriate native seed mixes can be obtained from the Soil and Water Conservation District or Natural Resource Conservation Service. The engineer's report should include a requirement to establish a 60.5 buffer as part of the County Ditch 78 project. Perennial vegetative buffers from public ditches and shoreline areas are designed to reduce erosion and runoff, improve water quality, and decrease the frequency of ditch cleanouts. Although it is not required by statute or rule, the DNR recommends that local government unit establish an ordinance that requires a 50-foot perennial vegetative buffer on all public ditches as a mechanism to achieve the desired benefits that have been well documented in the literature. The establishment of the ordinance would be consistent with and support county water plans. The DNR supports the implementation of the best management practices that are mentioned in page 5 of the preliminary engineer's report. County Ditch 78 eventually flows into the Watonwan River and that is impaired by turbidity according to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's impaired waters list. Best management practices that result in water retention and erosion control throughout the watershed need to be implemented to ensure the project does not contribute to downstream turbidity. Please note that even though it is not feasible to restore enough wetlands to eliminate the need for a ditch system, it is beneficial to include water retention into the project. Wetland restorations, creation, and storage basins provided water retention in the watershed, improve water quality, provide wildlife habitat. And again, please contact Kevin Nixon, Regional Environmental Assistant Ecologist, if you have any general questions about this letter. And it's signed Jim Seal, S-E-H-L, and he is the EWR Assistant Regional Manager. Just a point here on the letter. This County 78 already had a redetermination and has already established the 16.5-foot buffer on the system, so that has already been established.
Great. All right, we'll now hear from the petitioner's attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board. Late last year, in December, you were presented and accepted a petition for the improvement of...
Can I give your name?
Bruce Sellers.
Thank you.
Thank you. The board subsequently accepted that petition and ordered INS Group to prepare a preliminary engineering report. I will reserve, I'll defer to Mr. Brandel on that, but I believe after he presents his findings and recommendations, that you'll find that meets all the requirements under 103E 261 sub 5 in order to proceed. While I'm available to answer, address any issues or questions that arise later on, maybe in the public comments section, I'll refer to Mr. Bradley. Thank you.
Now I'll hear from the engineer.
Thank you again. Chuck Brando with INS Group. I'm here for Blue Earth County Ditch 78. It's a 9,000 acre watershed located between Garden City and Vernon Center. The history on this ditch is that most of the tile were constructed approximately 100 years ago. And then in 1944, there was an improvement to add portions of open ditch, add branches. In 2007, 2008, there was a redetermination of benefits. A portion of the ditch system was cleaned, and buffers were established on the ditch system. INS Group was the engineer for that project, and we were contacted by Craig about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, about some potential repairs that were needed or issues on the system. They were on just branch 1. So branch 1 drains approximately 2,500 acres of the 9,000 acres. And it has an open ditch and then a 26-inch tile. We were asked to look at the condition of the 26-inch tile. We went out and surveyed the locations that we were available to get at, some intakes, the outlet to the system, and found that portions of the tile had backfall to them, that they were draining the wrong way. Thus, they were out of repair. These portions are in low-lying areas that have potential for peat soils and subsidence. We've seen that occur many times where we get these areas that were drained out, then the ground settles, the tile settled with it, and thus it's not working properly. We also, in our investigation, looked at the reports from the last improvement, and the engineer recommended a larger tile for branch 1 than what was installed at that time. So we have an undersized system. We've had 3 meetings with landowners where all the landowners have been noticed. This is the preliminary engineering report. This is not the final approval. So we need to show that the project is cost effective and the outlet's adequate. In doing so, after those meetings, during those meetings, there were multiple options that were presented. Redoing every tile system in the watershed was part of it. We looked at different areas that could be improved, different areas that could be repaired. I believe we even used the current redetermination of benefits and had some preliminary costs per landowner for all of those meetings. So we've gone through a couple different options. The project that was petitioned was to just do a portion of branch 1 and lateral C and lateral B. Those portions affect about 2,500 acres of the watershed. Also unique to this watershed is that there is a portion on the southeast side that is called Vernon Center Township Ditch. I have not run into a township ditch as part of a ditch project before. In looking through the records with Craig, that's not part of the ditch system, but it is assessed into the ditch system because its water drains into the ditch system. We did look at options for improving that area. At that time, there was no petition to improve that area, which could have been made part of 77 through a certain type of petition process. So the proposed improvement is to replace the 26-inch tile that is in part of branch 1 with a 48-inch tile. The current capacity of that 26-inch tile is a 0.1 drainage coefficient. The proposal would get that up to a half-inch drainage coefficient. The most cost-effective way to improve that portion of the system is to deepen a part of the open ditch on branch 1. This branch is very flat. The low area that it drains is, to get the adequate depth, we would need to lower a portion of that open ditch to do that. Along with increasing the outlet to a 48-inch be constructed through sections 11 down into section 14, where the lateral C, which does drain the Vernon Center Township ditch, and the portion of branch 1 split. At that location, a 30-inch pipe would be constructed as part of lateral C to the south of Township Road 83, and a 24-inch pipe would be extended to the east. That is the area that was petitioned. So it's only doing a portion of one of the options that was presented at that time. To address some of the DNR's concerns and also some landowners' concerns in the ditch system, that the ditch has adequate capacity, we're proposing to take the open ditch part of branch 1 and widen it, deepen it, and make it a storage area. Currently, this area has portions of the buffers that are at CRP, so similar to the last, to 34 that we discussed earlier, that portions of that would be widened, and we're proposing, even though the viewers haven't been appointed, that there would be permanent damages for any widening of that area, and we've included that in the cost. That would have to be determined if this project moves forward and viewers are appointed at a final hearing, but we've included costs for that damage. We had a meeting last week, and there were some concerns about the widening and deepening of this ditch. We did look at, based on landowners' comments, one other option, which would be closing the ditch and extending a tile for branch 1. That's not what was petitioned. That would add approximately $450,000 to the cost of the project. So that could be an option moving forward. Another thing we discussed, we're looking further upstream in the system for a potential storage area. When we did the repair back in 2007, there were portions further upstream that have some steeper grade to them that maybe we could also look at a storage option. So I'd ask that if you move this project forward, that you give us the opportunity to look at other storage areas to address, to see if we can find another cost-effective way to accommodate any increase in flow from the proposed improvement. As the project was presented in the preliminary engineering report, the construction costs were just under $900,000. The reason the costs are relatively high for this small area is it's pretty large pipe. When you get to 48, 42-inch pipe, you get a higher cost per foot. If the areas, including portions of the ditch, were in need of repair, which they are, the cost to repair the areas that are proposed to be approved are $534,000. So currently, there's a net cost of $364,000. It's our opinion at this point, if we implement some of the water quality features that we talked about, and separable maintenance was used, that the project would be cost effective and the output would be adequate. We did also do a multi-purpose drainage management study, which is now required by statute. I feel that if you move this project forward, we should meet with the SWCD and the DNR, go over that plan and see if there's portions that could potentially be funded or added to the system with cooperation from those groups. I do have a plan shown on the board here. Some things that are relatively cost effective that could be added, and there's funding available, would be a wood chip bioreactor on the end of the proposed improvement. Outside of the ditch system, controlled drainage could be added. We also do show some potential wetland restoration or storage areas that could be looked at. Also at the meeting last week, there were a few areas that landowners said, based on our watershed map, that have been tiled out of the system. If we move forward, we'll give those areas to the viewers so they can appropriately adjust the redetermination of benefits. It's a summary of CD 78. Thank you.
Go ahead.
The watershed looks like it includes the city there too, correct?
A portion of it.
Yeah. And will that, does their drainage then also impact branches or improvement, that you're talking about or not?
Yeah, I don't know if their stormwater system is directly connected into what's called the Vernon Township ditch. Craig might be able to.
The viewers, last time they did the redetermination, determined that most of the water from the city itself is actually goes to the south branch of the river.
Oh, that's all.
Now it's, there might be some surface water that still goes into the system, but if you look at the benefits listing from the original benefits, there is some farmland that's technically in the city that's still included, but most of there's no city streets or anything like that that are actually included there, listed as benefit.
And some of the area that was discussed with us that has been tiled out of the system is just to the northeast of the city, so that will need to be reviewed again if the project moves forward and we do a redetermination.
That was my second question, is about the redetermination. It's been less than 10 years, I think, since the whole system was redetermined. So I'm just wondering, is that usual to order another redetermination?
Well, you want to answer?
Is that because of the cost involved?
There's been enough changes in costs in even 10 years, both land costs and also there's been changes in how viewers actually supposed to be looking at certain properties. There's been enough changes so there would be an apples to oranges, because what at the end of the project you add benefits from the improvement to the predetermined benefits. If we don't bring up the benefits even after 10 years, the predetermined benefits, it'd be kind of like adding apples to oranges. The people in the improvement area may pay a disproportionate portion of future repairs, or it could be vice versa depending on what's happened in the economy in the last 10 years. So that's just standard procedure to do a redetermination and bring everything up so you're numbers.
If I could add to that, even though a redetermination or repair were done, the repair was only done in 2007 on the open ditch. There are tile branches that are 100 years old and not functioning as they should or are undersized. So there's been land since that redetermination that's been tiled out because they felt they didn't have an adequate outlet.
Oh, I see.
So that's the other reason to make sure we adjust for those areas that have been tiled since the last redetermination.
And then the outlet, where does the outlet go?
The outlet eventually makes it to the Wacolon River. It drains north. I'm not zoomed out far enough on the maps, but
I was just curious what kind of land is in between there. Is that open ditch from there to the river?
It's open ditch and natural waterway. Well, once you get further north, there's a lot of fall in the system because you drain down into the valley. But it's ravine, natural waterway, and some ditch. So if you look at the map, once you get outside the watershed, you can see that the system starts to meander a little bit because it's more of a natural waterway than a ditch.
So those are your considerations of increasing the size of the pipe and everything, the impact that might have on future erosion. You're looking at trying to figure out where in the system we can find some kind of a conservation project
that could slow it down and protect anything downstream. The system right now would be adequate to take the improvement. We're proposing to add some storage to it to accommodate the DNR concerns and other concerns. I think that's been a practice that I've been directed to do and look at, so we include those in the project if it's cost effective. We need to find cost effective ways to do it.
Any more questions for Chuck or Greg on the board? Chuck. Hearing no more additional questions from the board, we'll now open the floor for public comment. The hearing is being recorded, so please come to the podium. State your name and address for the record. Also, as a courtesy to others wishing to comment, please limit your comments to fewer than 5 minutes per person. So are any other comments from the public? Feel free to come up to the podium. Any comments from the public? Sitting up here waiting for you.
Good morning. It's been a long day. I am John Rawlings, 409 First Street East, Vernon Center. If possible, I would like to hand you a formal letter and then read some highlights from it, if that would be acceptable. First of all, I would like to make it as clear as I can that I am the spokesman for my family, and I am speaking on behalf of my family and not as my role as elected supervisor to the Blue Earth County Soil and Water Conservation District. Craig Austinson, has informed us that essentially when the Ditch 78 was formed, there was an agreement with what they called the Vernon Center Township ditch, that it was to be essentially treated kind of like a private ditch. The basic part of our first question is, given we don't think anyone from the Vernon Center Township ditch system has asked for an upgrade, and the only use for lateral C appears to be as an outlet for the Vernon Center Township ditch. Do you have the legal authority to go through with improvements and upgrades? We honestly don't have an answer to that question. It is a legal question and we don't have an answer for it. That is one of the first things that we would like you to consider. The second thing is the present ditch system keeps water from ponding in a low area on one farm by forcing another family to have their better quality land dug out in a wider and deeper ditch and water ponded on it. The dugout land is then transported to the first landowner's farm, with the fill further helping keep that land from flooding. This seems incredibly unfair and expensive. We believe it would be more economical to reduce the tile sizes, perhaps lessen some of and create better management practices where the ponding occurs naturally and historically. Then I am going to move on and make a few comments that appear to be applicable both specifically to this ditch and to the general process that we are undergoing. We believe that the Blue Earth County should have a better system for non-petitioners' participation in the ditch maintenance and improvement engineering process. The present process is unduly divisive and excludes those who may want to participate or simply to be regularly informed. The present system is totally dominated by the petitioners, with the engineering plans apparently drawn up to their requests and specifications. In this case, many in this watershed have gone for over a year with no feedback or input. If the petitioners want, they simply exclude people by ignoring them. Another major point, I go on there for some background and reasoning. Another point that I would like to make is that Blue Earth County should set guidelines and minimum levels of performance that the engineers involved in ditch improvements and maintenance must follow before recommending any action. We believe that it's good management to set up a minimum criteria of investigation for an engineer to follow before making recommendations for ditch improvements and or maintenance. These could include such items as requiring interviews of local landowners to see if private lines are already supplementing the ditch system, or use of modern technology to view the lines for possible problems. We did not see any of this on ditch 78. Again, there's a list of background and reasoning. We also believe, in number 3, Blue Earth County should require that the drainage projects implement a significant level of the best management practices as measured by the total overall effectiveness on reducing surge and erosion impacts from the ditch. In our opinion, in this case, at least 75% of the best management practices outlined in this engineering report should be implemented for those improvements. We believe that to the greatest degree possible, the best management practices should be implemented on land that naturally and historically ponds water, not digging a wider ditch in top-quality farmland. Compensating owners by creating ponding places in low areas may be less expensive than tile upgrades. Ditch 78 should look at such a system. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Greg, do you wish to comment on any of this?
Okay. I know
I could comment on one.
Yeah, I was
Yes, I could comment on the first question. The legalness of the township ditch, both Craig and I in reviewing documents, the area of lateral C that's being proposed to be improved was part of CD 78. The petition showed it to go to, grab a map, to Township Road 83, which is here. We're proposing that, and we can stop the pipe on either side. We're proposing at this time, if we're going to get to that road, that we cross it so that we, in any future repairs or improvements, they don't have to deal with crossing the road. And that cost is also, would be helped borne by the road authority, which is the township. So that was why we proposed to move it that far. We could end it further north, but that portion of the system, according to the records we found, is still part of 78, not part of the township ditch.
Okay. Any other questions, Craig?
okay. I was just more concerned about the guidelines as far as the engineer. We were following statute. We also have several. Did have several. You mentioned 3 informational meetings to bring in and let everybody on the system know that the petition was pending. That is above and beyond statute right now. That's just been something we've done. We didn't used to do when I first got here. Those are something that has been implemented since I became ditch manager. Is those additional meetings, so that we're already going above and beyond. It requires statutes as far as notifications to landowners about the project. Now, I don't know about the legal issues of actually implementing additional guidelines if they would actually interfere with the state statute. I'd have to see a specific request as far as the way guidelines that used to be.
I understand.
If I may? Yeah. One of the comments was the investigation of the existing system. By statute, we are to do a survey and look at the condition of the existing system. We have been out there, we've looked at everything we can see, looked in intakes, looked in the outlet of pipes, taken pictures, surveyed the area. So we do have, for what's required by statute, an adequate assessment of the existing system.
Thank you.
And that's, again, this is a preliminary hearing, so basically what the board is doing is saying, okay, just on limited information, this looks like a piece of the project, and then orders the engineer to do a detailed survey. That is, would actually a survey with more detail.
More detail would come at a later time.
But this is like that preliminary. Before we go to the expense of doing that much detail, we have a preliminary hearing. That's the purpose of this hearing today.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Any other comments from the public? One more time. Any further comments on the public in reference to County Ditch 78? Say no. Oh, there you go. Please state your name and address, please.
I'm Dwayne Bergerman, 1220 South Minnesota Street, New Ulm. The ditch goes actually through right through our land to the north. If this tile, I have no objections if you replace the tile, but why is it so expensive? Is you end up redigging the whole ditch, and I can remember when that was put together. It was because Ray Bennett did not want an open ditch. No way. And Bert Hansen said, we'll just give you a tile. You got a tile. Well, not the tile plugged up. We got to do something with it. But why do we have to do the ditch and all of that at one time? Why not just fix the problem you got and don't make yourself any extra expenses? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? One more time, any further comments from the public? Talk to you into it,
Good. Steve Roloffs, 14763 534th Avenue, Vernon Center. And my question is why does all the tile end at the petitioner's property? Why doesn't it continue on through lateral B? Why doesn't it continue on to the end of the current county tile? Which would be, it's not even on there. It would be on this page here. County tile runs all the way up to Township Road 83.
Chuck, can you answer that?
I'll finish your question.
Which would be on this page if you have it, don't you? Which would be this line here. Why doesn't it run through this farm, which isn't my farm? But why doesn't it run all the way to the end of the county tile this way?
Thank you.
At this time, we're only proposing what was petitioned, what was asked to be improved. Areas can be added if requested. The board does have the right to add those areas, but right now we're only doing the area that we were asked to do as part of the petition. So that's why it stops where it does.
Understand that?
Well, that's why the petition process is wrong.
Okay.
But I do want to comment that the preliminary engineering report is a time for landowners to comment. So if there are requests to add areas, I think now is the time to speak up and discuss those. So, as the engineer for the project, we're following what was petitioned and what the board asked us to do at this point.
Thank you. Any further comments? Yes, sir.
Your map is a little bit off on the first map that's on there. And on the western portion here, you're listing that as a county road. That's actually a Vernon Center Township road, not a county road.
Thank you. Any further comments? Any further comments with reference to ditch number 78? Seeing no further comments, I'm going to bring this back to the board and close the floor. Board, what is your wishes?
Mr. Chair, I'd like the record to reflect that I'll be abstaining from voting on this and applying to certify this new system.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Will Purvis will be a recluse from this. The rest of the board, what's your wishes?
Questions, if I could.
I'll tell you, let's ask some questions after we get our motion.
What page are we on? For the resolution? So I have 65. I'll move the resolution.
second. Go ahead and ask your questions.
Well, I mean, this hearing, from what I understand, is to see if it needs to be, move forward, to see if it needs to have some improvements done on the ditch system.
Okay.
Correct. And I'm just wondering in a nutshell, I mean, there's some people that are having problems with some plugged tile lines and plugged areas, and when looking at the differences of cleaning it out and doing some minor, maybe major repairs, I don't know, how does it put that into the improvement of the system versus replacing, or you look at the cost benefit difference there? I mean, isn't that kind of how we handle that?
Yeah, we can start, okay. We can start off the project. We know there's an issue out there. We had basically a landowner say, hey, we'd like to do something with it. Its system's not working. I originally was called out to look at repair. It was pretty obvious from just observation about doing a survey work that that tile line was in disrepair. There was holes in it, there was voids. It was very close to the surface, so it was in a cross zone. And it actually sort of, some things on it just didn't make sense to me, so it was indications that it was out of alignment. Basically, then we ordered a survey, quick survey for the INS to make a kind of a repair assessment, and found out, yes, it was out of alignment at that time. At that time, the landowner then said he'd like to petition for an improvement rather than just a repair. So then we had information start. We said we should have informational meetings. We had Chuck to do a preliminary report just on what it would take to do repairs. We had a series of, we had 3 informational hearings. Included in those informational meetings was allowing all the landowners to look at all the different parts of the system. Yeah, this is not the only branch that has problems on the system.
So other landowners came forward?
Well, they can come forward.
They can.
We had a couple landowners that had one petition for improvement. Other landowners, if they wish to improve additional parts of the property, they could come forward. They could have, it could be separate petitions or whatever. That is an option. And quite often, if they come in at the same time, it would be, even if 2 petitions, we could combine them and hopefully save some costs for all the landowners involved in those improvements. Those are all options.
Mm-hmm. And so it sounds like it's a couple of property owners that are concerned about having a problem. It's not like a whole series of landowners that are having issues, to your knowledge.
And the comment from Mr. Olaf's comment about why it wasn't continued, that's a very valid question, and it could very be easily done. Again, Chuck, we got petitions, said, okay, this is where we're starting and stopping. That was the petition. And the board could order those additions to it if they wish. And that's again, the purpose of this preliminary hearing, to let people look at modifications like that.
It isn't clear to me, I'm just going to tell you as a board member, is if there is other problem areas in the ditch system. And so to order like a very expensive ditch repair or improvement, excuse me, I don't know if there's other areas that need to be done, which sounds like nobody really knows right now, unless they're sitting out here, they're not saying anything. And so I don't know, the benefit that goes with this whole thing. Is it going to impact all these other landowners nearby? Is it going to, we don't know that yet, do we, right?
The exact impact on it as far as finances?
Yeah, and also it's an expensive improvement to a couple different areas.
It is, the repair portion is quite expensive. And then the repair portion is actually allocated to everybody on the entire system. There are, like I said, people to the west, not even part of the branch there. They will see no benefit from this, but they are responsible for a portion of the repair. In this particular system, if you look at the board order, there it talks about whereas the engineer's report shows a separable portion of the existing drainage system will be improved, and that portion needs repair. That's basically acknowledging, hey, this portion is in disrepair, and people are asking not for just a repair, but to actually improve it is what it is. Everybody pays for the repair. People who benefit from the improvement pay for the improvement.
Right. And then the other issue I heard, which I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard somebody say the communication issues maybe was an issue. So did they get a letter that just said they're looking at a repair, but actually it's an improvement, and maybe they felt they were left out of the petition somehow? I don't know, I'm just curious how that happened.
I don't know if Chuck wants to talk about what, a couple of those meetings, what he actually presented to the landowners.
If I may, we had multiple meetings with landowners. The first one, we just looked at this area, and there was a request by somebody at that meeting, everybody in the system was invited, to look at the whole system. So we came back and we looked at the entire system. So every single branch in the system was looked at. My recommendation was, if you're going to do an improvement, if somebody's going to petition for an improvement, add as much as you can onto that, because there's all of the costs associated with these hearings, the reports, in doing that. But our report is just for what was petitioned. Because of the age of the tile, I'd recommend looking at more, but we have to follow what was petitioned at this time and what was requested. If that makes sense.
And then during the preliminary, if this moves forward from the board, then more can be discovered as you develop the engineering reports.
If you would like us to, we could include an option that looks at more of the system. But that's an added expense, an added portion to the project. But we can look at more of the system if you'd like us to do that. At this point, we're following the petition with just to look at these areas in section 11 and 14.
What do you recommend, Craig? I'm just curious. They're just asking for your advice too.
They never like to make recommendations.
Well, you're a ditch management staff, and so I prefer it as to.
Well, as far as additional areas, I think, Mr. Roloff's, for example, that's a great example of why should we look at those other areas. Again, if for improvements, we can't order an improvement just on our own. Well, I'd like to get, it makes sense to do that additional land, going right through Roloff's, going into the south side. It would give people on the south, in that area, to the south side of the road, much better outlet. I can see that as a very easy add-on for this project. I don't know if Chuck would have to figure out the cost. I don't like to add a whole lot to a system unless we get a petition from landowners. If the landowners who are benefiting say they don't want that and they want to live with what they got, or just make repairs to that, well, it is their system.
Yeah.
I think they should have a say in what happens out there, which is again why we had multiple informational hearings, so try to make sure everybody knew that something was happening, and also give them options, and actually have to give them some numbers as far as what those additional options or additional comparisons cost and improvements.
All right.
So we can bring those repairs. So you want another petition? We can, following the past, you can pull some of them right into that petition. But
if we can
sign the petition?
The way we've done it in the past, we have had the preliminary hearing in past years.
Right.
Had somebody stand up and say, if you're going to do this, I want this included. And if it makes sense to the board can order. That's what's happened at the preliminary hearings in the past.
Right. But a person can come online or come on to a petition that's existing if they want to sign on to that petition instead of starting the whole process over.
Or they could sign a separate petition.
Then they got to get an attorney and then they got to bring it back with us.
Yeah, would be much preferable to do that as part of this project. Because it would save everybody a lot of money in the long run. Because if they, a year from now say, hey, we should improve ours, well, then we are starting over again.
So they can attach it.
Well, they can definitely attach it.
That's my question. Okay. And that makes sense, because that's what we're talking about on.
But again, I always like to get something from the landowner.
Exactly. Yeah, you want them to.
So there's a potential that there's some landowners who'd like to petition to attach it to the current work that's going to be done.
Yeah. And I guess maybe I'd ask Mr. Roloff, is that something you want us to do?
If you're gonna fix it to the whole county tile, if you're gonna fix it. Why should somebody get it and and the rest of us gotta put up with the old tile.
So would we be better off to sort of table this till we get maybe one more meeting, or do you want to start the process? What would be the recommendation of it?
I don't know.
If it can be added easy enough, I don't have a problem.
You know, the thing is,
Yeah.
what I'm hearing is that it can be added right onto this. I mean, once we approve this, it can be added on. That's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
I would recommend that you ask us to look at that as another option, to add that area, and that way it's coming from the board, and we can have, as we move forward, if you approve this, we have a final report with option 1 and option 2, as petitioned, and with the additional, and that way all the landowners can know what their costs are for that additional work.
Would someone want to give an amendment to that?
Bruce wants to hear from Bruce.
I would just like to point out that one of the considerations I'd like the board to keep in mind now and in the future, the petitioners were required to pay for and obtain a surety bond. And what that means is that if this project doesn't go through, if for some reason it's rejected by the board or it doesn't go through to construction, the petitioners are required to pay all the costs and expenses. So the more that the board adds is more cost, which I don't believe the petitioners are opposed to looking at, some extra options. But a substantial change, I believe there may be more need for discussion. As Mr. Osson and Mr. Randall indicated, there were numerous meetings, and I was a part of, I believe, 1, possibly 2, and the landowners had an opportunity, if they wanted to, they could petition. If they didn't want an improvement, I don't think an improvement should be forced upon them. The petitioners have brought forth a valid petition. It's a lawful petition. They're improving a portion that is going to benefit them. But that's their right under the statute. They follow the procedures. I don't believe that additional improvements should be unilaterally made by the commissioners, enforcing more expense not only upon my clients as petitioners, but upon the landowners as well. Because they're the ones that are ultimately going to be paying for the benefit of those improvements. So it's just something that I understand.
And that's why I would like to see them sign the petition. So they got skin in the game, but I mean, so that's kind of my question, is that allowable or not?
I don't believe they're allowed to sign now.
All right, well, that's kind of, that's where I'm going.
A separate petition, I've done this in the past, very similar circumstances, where someone was late getting on board and decided that, oh yeah, this is something I would like to see done. All right, a petition can be drafted relatively quickly and presented to the board for acceptance. Mr. Randall already has the survey done, so put together a preliminary engineer's report on another improvement wouldn't take a lot. So because that work's already done, you're saving a lot of expense in engineering fees. Because a petition has already been drafted, it wouldn't take an attorney long, I don't believe, to put together a petition to get it in front of the board. You could bring these together. They would need to be dealt with separately because they're 2 separate petitions, but they could be moved along at the same time. And it's just a matter of hearing one, motion, resolution on one, closing, opening the other one, doing the same thing.
So I just want to make sure we do it right, because I want.
And I believe that is the appropriate way.
That's the appropriate way to handle it. I just don't have a problem with that. So they're still able to get in. Not holding them out.
They have to get, basically, get the skin in the game and go out.
Because there is a big responsibility for the petitioners. They have to put up, if this thing doesn't go, now we start adding stuff onto it.
Right.
And all of a sudden, if you close up,
we can't.
Petitioners out for $25,000, $30,000 cost. So that gets to be problematic. So I certainly would support sticking to what we got on the table today. And then if someone else wants to petition, they can certainly get it another attorney, or Mr. Seller, who's working on this already. And as he indicated, Chuck's already got stuff done, so.
Again, for what's been discussed here, I don't believe that adding extending that branch B, I don't know that that's prohibited. If that's something that the commissioners want to take a look at, I don't believe that that's an issue, but if you start materially changing the proposed project, then I think there needs to be more consideration given. But with something like this, if Mr. Brandel doesn't think it would add a lot of cost, so just look at it. And you have the discretion.
But I tend to agree with your performance there. I mean, a little cost extra or a lot of cost extra isn't the thing. It's an extra cost. And the original petitioner should not be having to put that up. We have the opportunity now to vote on what we have here. If the landowners downstream want to petition and get into this, they can do it as soon as possible, and they can do this. So but we can't force them to get into it, and we shouldn't. That's not our position. So thank you. So any further comments?
The other one I have is on some of the things in the letter that we got. Things like, they were given the opportunity to sign on to the petition, that they felt their input was limited at public meetings, limiting or something here, and it says here that Booth County does not routinely inform everyone on the ditch system as to the names of the petitioners. The list of names has not been readily available at meetings, but one can obtain it by specifically asking. And they're asking, should be routine to have this information. They feel that the process is divisive and that sort of thing. I mean, do we have any response here about that now, or is this something that's a concern that is it true? I mean, if people receive invitations to these meetings, told the times and the dates, they're allowed to ask questions there, and they're allowed to give their input and even ask if they want to be part of the petition, aren't they? If they feel their land needs some sort of upgrade.
Yeah, that was the purpose of the informational meetings, to cover just those things. So most of the information, as far as providing names, we don't send out entire packets with the hearing, the engineer's preliminary report. That's cost prohibitive, but it's available. It's be very easy to actually provide that online. As far as once we get that, people can actually look those things up online. I believe we actually did that on 78 here, right? Yeah, we have that available. Anybody who wants to look at the engineer's packet on our official documents on 78 can now do that online. And if they have questions how to do that, they can probably just talk to Casey. Casey actually set that up for us.
And when you're at the meeting, don't you have a map there?
Oh, yeah.
So it's pretty evident whose land it is.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, that's normally when we've had several informational meetings, and we always get people jumping on board, and we work towards the petition. 2 or 3 meetings, usually what it takes to get it done.
Well, thank you very much. If there's no other comments or amendments, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? It's been passed. All right. We're going to, that's right.
Viewers, this is also the time. Okay. We as part of the findings and order, we appoint viewers for the determination of benefits, but we also order a redetermination of benefits, which is actually a separate action. So that's also something we have always been doing at the same time. Okay. On page 65, yeah, page 66 here. The viewers.
Ron, Lance, and Chuck, I would move them to be viewers for
redetermination or redetermination.
Second.
Motion and second, any questions?
Remind me of that understanding.
Got it.
What'd you say?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Against? That's been passed. Okay. Do we have anything else?
I believe that's it.
Oh my gosh, I can't
Is
believe
that
it.
enough?
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you very much. We'll take just a couple minutes. We have the rest of our board meeting, but if you wish to leave, feel
I told
free.
him, he texted me earlier, I said I'd call him. Get that spreadsheet that Ron sent, that provides us to type in a number and spits out. No, I wish it would have. I could probably, I have some time this afternoon, I could probably manipulate it and make it work that way. If I can take each number as a
All
percentage,
right,
because you
we're
would
going to go
be able
right into
then I
Citizens
can bring my
Committee
computer
for
and type it in.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, number 6 in your packet, that is a recommendation to adjust the per diem rates for our citizens committees. We have, I believe it's 9 citizen committees that provide input and feedback to the county on a number of different issues. We have not adjusted the rates.
They gotta go through the procedure just like, and we just wait on the final, let their prelim get done.
Normal citizen.
It does delay it, but it's not.
$40 meetings.
I'm done.
Would also increasing the planning and zoning board of adjustment premium from $35 to $60 for a single meeting. And if both the planning and zoning committee and the board of adjustment meet on the same evening, so they have 2 different meetings, we would recommend increasing from $50 to $90. And we recommend that these changes be effective July 1st.
I make motion to go ahead with the recommendations.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments, concerns? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Against? It passed. All right.
Mr. Chair, I believe that's all we have.
I will move to recess to 1.
Six.